Good evening. I'd like to call the June 25th, 2013 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with a roll call? Excuse me.
We have someone else doing that, so we probably forgot to change the date. Sorry.
So, yeah, I just read it. July 9th. Good catch. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes. Mayor Coombs.
Present.
Council members Bagley.
Present.
Finley. Here. Levison. Here. Samori. Present. Santos. Here. Witt. Here. Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing items this evening or at the final call public invited to be heard on any item at the end of the meeting. The June 25th, are there any corrections to be made or discussions? Seeing none, can I have a motion to Councilmember Levison?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the minutes of, what was the date?
June 25th.
June 25th. Thank you.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Valerie, are there any agenda revisions or submissions of documents?
Yes, Mayor Coombs. There were some supplemental items for agenda item 11C that were delivered to you via email and also posted on our web, and that would be the Pavlakis Open Space Master Plan and the park naming item.
Thank you. Is there a report from the city manager?
No report, Mayor, Council.
Okay.
So, Mayor Coombs, their first item then is the joint meeting with the council and the Longmont Downtown Development Authority. If the authority members could come down front, that would be great. And I believe Larry Stoss, Vice Chair of the DDA, is going to open with some remarks.
Mayor Coombs, members of council, my name is Larry Stoss.
Push the light on.
Is that the right button?
Yep, yeah, got it.
Thank you. Mayor Coombs, members of council, my name is Larry Stoss. I'm the Vice Chair of the LDDA Board. On behalf of the board, we would sincerely like to thank you for the opportunity to come and have this joint meeting with you this evening. We appreciate it very much. I would like to go ahead and have my fellow board members go ahead and introduce themselves.
Bob Goff, Irving Jolson. First, I would like to say
Turn on the mic.
Turn.
Sorry. I would like to say thank you for reappointing me to the board. Hopefully I can serve one more term for 4 years, and then we'll bring some new blood into the LDDA. But I wanted to see what we put in place come to fruition. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that on behalf of the board and Kimberly, I would like to just say that I think that together we have done some really wonderful things with our downtown. Kimberly's going to go over some of those things this evening for you and with you, and we sincerely appreciate all of your support for the DDA and all the great things that have happened downtown. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Kimberly McKee.
Hi, Valerie. How do I get the presentation? There, perfect. Thank you so much for having us here. I'm so glad to be here today. And we're going to give you a quick presentation of things that have happened in the DDA in the district. And just wanted you to know that I gave a similar presentation to the CML conference and to the Colorado Creative Districts. And so all of the great work that we're all doing together is really getting recognition around the state. The DDA was established in 1982, and we were really established DDAs to revitalize downtown and prevent blight. And as you can see, our mission is to develop and promote a vital and valuable downtown. And we're toying with a vision statement that we want downtown Longmont to be a cool urban neighborhood where everyone wants to live. And when you talk about an urban neighborhood, it's more than just a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood for everyone in your whole community. And so it's where everyone wants to be, and that's really what we're looking at. Our job is never complete. It's something that's never done as you're trying to keep your downtown vital and relevant. So I'd really like to thank City Council. I'd like to thank our board and the whole community for their vision and what they want for downtown, and just highlight some of the things that we have done together. Keeping downtown clean and safe is really one of our major goals. It's the foundation of everything we do for downtown. It's the building block of everything else that we're going to do. Safety, we work really well with all the safety officers and public works and really work hard to keep our downtown a pleasant place. We're looking to improve the level of clean and maintenance planning, and so we're working on a long-term plan for our infrastructure. The DDA is aging, and so is some of our infrastructure, and so really making sure that the investments that we made stay very important and relevant for our community. If you've seen our planners, I think they look better than ever this year with the wonderful colors, and last year we updated our light poles, the insides of them, and so this year we're getting quotes on painting the outside to really make sure that they stay aesthetically pleasing. We did some pressure washing in the general improvement district on the Main Street sidewalks. We had our Clean and Green event 2 years in a row. The first year we had more than 60 volunteers putting in 300 hours. Second year we had more than 100 volunteers putting in 500 hours. So you can really see how the community as well is coming out to support everything we're doing here in downtown. We work to inform our businesses. We have a safety officer at all of our block captain meetings. We have we provide traffic updates, and we provided weekly communications during our alleyscape meeting, which are really essential to keep people apprised of what's going on. So we also work on marketing, placemaking, and people, and this is really the fun part of downtown, and really getting feet on the street. You can see our marketing campaign, we really focused on local business owners. This was a suggestion of our block captains. And block captains are a group of folks, either merchants or business owners from different parts in the district. And we really worked together to talk about issues downtown. And one of the things was really to feature local merchants, that these are our neighbors, our friends that are running our small businesses here in downtown. If you remember, Twitter said that we were the second happiest city in America. We did a full-page ad in the Times Call, and you can see in these ads, they're real small, but everyone had a great time when we did these photo shoots, and they brought in props, and they were all laughing and smiling. And so we had a full-page ad in the Times Call that said, if you think we're the second happiest city in America, you've never been downtown. Clearly, we're the first. And so really talking about how these folks and these business owners put their heart and soul in everything that they do. They're our friends, they're our neighbors, they really make a difference, and so we're trying to highlight all of their efforts. DowntownLongmont.com was our new website that we launched last year. We increased our unique users by 158%. People are really using this to look at events, to look at properties online, to look at all the different things. We finally put everything in one place under our website. We have a placemaking committee that looks at the sense of place, that makes you want to come down and stay down and make you feel like you're in a coordinated downtown district. They did a block-by-block assessment, watched every bit of the DDA, and wrote down their observations so we can work in the future to make that cohesive. You can look at some things we're looking at with coordinated banners, signs, and other things to really give downtown the look it deserves. We have some pop-up galleries and displays, which is just another great testament for the spirit we have here in Longmont. When we had a retail store close right before the holidays, we had 2 pop-up galleries that filled that retail space. One was a conglomeration of artists, and the other was East Boulder County artists. So it's really wonderful that even when we do have a vacant space, people are really swooping up to make sure that downtown stays vibrant. We've done a few different window displays as well to feature different things. And a volunteer collaboration. We're really working to create a volunteer community. It's the people that come and help us day in and day out that really make downtown what it is. So we're working with our art partners and other partners to provide incentives and thank yous for those that are putting their time and efforts in downtown. And we're working to promote our accomplishments. Downtown development and historic preservation is something very, very important for all of us. If you noticed, we did an alleyscape project in the last year. The east side will be totally finished very soon. We've gotten great feedback and compliments. We're also a leader. Alleys are something that downtowns are looking at all the time. We had the board of the URA of Pueblo come. We gave a presentation for Downtown Colorado Inc. And I often get calls about what we're doing and how. We've gotten a lot of compliments, like I said, and our alleyscape, before it was completely done, will be featured in a movie, and so they filmed in the alley, so what a testament if you're not even done and you're in a Hollywood film. So we're really excited about that. One of the things that we're really proud of, too, is our alley incentive program. We looked at these beautifully improved alleys and then said, well, these back doors are kind of the entrance, and we want to make sure that they get the attention that they deserve as well. Last year, we had 21 different properties make an investment in the back of their building for more than $220,000. That's really a lot of people that did something in 1 year at one time, and you can see a few of our before and after pictures there. It was everything from a quick coat of paint to a full facade redo. So we're really proud about the work that has been done. Alleyscape on the west side. So the west side has a new design. It'll very much be similar to the east side, but the west side has its own unique character. It's a much more intimate setting. And so we really worked with the designers to make sure that the character of that side got carried out in their alley. We incorporated the lessons learned from the east side. So we're hoping to begin construction. This year we will only do the 300 West block. We're hoping to begin on or before August 15th. And we hope access is fully restored to all of the businesses by Thanksgiving. So that is what we're looking at for the west side. So we invested in a catalyst project, Roosevelt Park Apartments, which will give us 115 residential units, a parking structure, retail, and mixed use. This will get people 24/7. Really, they say that rooftops bring retail, and so we're really glad to have people living in our district. It'll have a great addition with new restaurant and retail opportunities, and hopefully this catalyst project will be complemented by some other housing development on Cherry Street as well. So parking is always an issue that we talk a lot about. We did add a public lot in the 200 block. We invested in ground floor parking at Roosevelt Park Apartments that will all be public parking, and we maximized parking around our district, adding nearly 180 spaces by being much more efficient in everything that we do. So when I know there's been a lot of talk of a structure, everyone wants a structure exactly where they are behind their building, and so here I think we've really been able to maximize and spread out parking opportunities throughout our entire district to give everyone some of the benefit. We are working to be pedestrian and bike friendly. We have Park Bicycle Longmont. They do lots of great things for us. They have bike belays at our events. We're looking right now to add up to 40 new bike racks throughout the DDA district and have made Main Street between the 300 and 600 blocks a pedestrian zone where we're asking people to please walk their wheels to make it much more safe as you're in downtown. And so we're looking right now to update downtown guidelines. So we're looking at our signage guidelines and our design guidelines, and we really want to make sure that we preserve that historic feel while lending creativity to businesses. When we look at our business development and retention, one of the things that we're really proud of is we welcome Cheese and Porters into our district, and so thank all of you, too, for your assistance with that. They're a regional draw of 60,000 plus people, and they're one of the anchor tenants that we were really looking for. I think it's just the first of great things to come with that First and Main plan that we have, and it's just one of the things that we know we can really reach the potential in our district. We promote available space on our website, and we were able to make some matches this year with the Longmont Yarn Shop and Scrumptious and a few others. And so these are great businesses. Longmont Yarn Shop is an alley-facing business, and so that was one of the things that we were really hoping to see from our Alleyscape project. So we do keep the listings on our website, and it's one of our higher visited pages. Retail strategies, we do partner with the city on all of their promotion of their trainings. The Leggy program has been wonderful for lots of the downtown merchants, so thank you so much for your investment in that. We do joint promotions with our retailers, and on our website, you can see over there is a business snapshot. So each of our businesses has a business snapshot, has their location, and then it comes up and it shows nearest place to park, places to dine, places to shop. So what we're really hoping is that we're not just a one visit downtown, that people are going to where they want to be and then utilizing all the other great things we have in the district while we're here. We're looking at the retail clusters and kind of looking at the synergies and trying to enhance what's doing well here. We've seen a lot of success with creative and experiential retail. So when people can come and not just buy something, but they can really have an experience, that's been really great. We're hoping to see, we have one new gallery downtown right now. We're hoping to see another one fairly soon. Food has been big. We just announced a new bakery that's going to be on the 400 block. And we're hoping to see restaurants on the 300 block go from 3 to 6 in a little bit of time. And we opened Antonio's from Taos on the 200 block where Terroir was. And just a little side note, I was having lunch with Sean, who runs Downtown Boulder Inc., and he came here to kind of see all the great things we were doing, and I took him, he goes, I think I've been here. And I said, oh, they have a restaurant in Taos. He goes, yeah, I've been there. He goes, so you got them, huh? I said, yes, and they're things. So we're just really thrilled, and it's good to see that people are seeing the recognition of Longmont. The Arts Incubator Research, we are investing in 2 art spaces in the Roosevelt Park Apartments. We went and toured Loveland's Incubator, and we're hoping to partner with Loveland and with the Arts Incubator of the Rockies. Again, we want to support our artists, but not reinvent any wheels or duplicate any resources. So we're looking at who's doing it and who's doing it well, and seeing how we can partner with them to give the resources we need to our artists. Which brings us to our Arts and Entertainment District. The LDDA board, when we had the plan that everyone here adopted, really looked at that as a catalyst for our district. It's a good plan for the district and a good plan for the community altogether. So the state of Colorado gave creative district designations, and we were applying for ours, and I had to run something through the city law office, and I forget which attorney I was talking to, but he was looking at it, and he said, well, are you this? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, are you a creative district? And I said, well, we have 2 independent art organizations, 2 theaters, 10 galleries or studios, 6 music stores, 1 dance studio, a restored opera house, 25 historic buildings, the Thompson Inn, the Callahan House, St. Stephen's Plaza, and much more. And he said, oh, indeed you are. And so I was really glad to hear that. And once you really list them all together, it's pretty impressive what we have going on here, and I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. So last year, the state of Colorado named us a Prospective Colorado Creative District, and that, of course, was music to our ears. We were really thrilled to see that. Music was one of the top priorities in the plan, that people wanted to see more music downtown. Since then, we've opened the Speakeasy. We've opened Joe's that has salsa nights. The Dickens Opera House has really taken off with great music. We have Sunrose Cafe that has their music on Friday. LCA is doing Longmont Live, Larry's Guitar. There's all kinds of music opportunities, and I think there's just more to come. So we're working with committees and the rest of the community. Thank all of you so much for the Year of Art in 2012. I think that really solidified some of the relationships and the collaborations. And we have a group called the Arts Administrators, and we use them as the steering committee. They meet once a month to really talk about the district in ways we can all work together to keep that momentum going. So one of our ideas was to plan exciting gathering places. And if you didn't hit the farmers market last year, it was really awesome. And we did that in the alley parking lot and breezeways. And they really came to life exactly how we wanted them to. And so we're hoping that that can become a weekly market, midweek market, not competing with the Saturday one, but a midweek market in downtown in 2014. So we'll continue to work toward that. Last year we had an Every Friday series where we paid 21 artists or musicians for downtown, and after you complemented that with all of our concerts and art walks and festival and tree lightings and everything else we did, we had something going on every Friday downtown. This year, instead of doing it ourselves, we are offering artist stipends, so any business in the district can get a stipend to host an artist that's something that they're already doing. We worked to enhance our Second Fridays. In our Second Fridays, we had a celebration of diversity. We had to discover the district that we partnered with the school district, so you could discover the DDA district and school district. We had a date night and art adventure, and we continue to try to really enhance those Second Fridays. We're working to enhance our visitor experience and really working on some new demographics. So we had a event at Halloween before the parade. I think the Halloween parade is so impressive when you see Main Street filled from 300 to 600 on both sides with people that come down for a parade. That's amazing. The night before we had a little adult trick-or-treat night, which went really well. And we saw that new younger professional demographic that we'd like to see more. It's great that we're family friendly and we'll continue that as a huge goal, but it's nice to see some other populations get some things to do down here as well. So working to promote what already exists, we do great holiday collaborations. Again, Second Fridays was already existing. We're just working to enhance them. And the art walks. We have collaborations with our downtown theaters. One of the examples from Colorado Creative Industries was partnering with other theaters and having them come do their productions in your theater. And so really thrilled to see that the Longmont Theater Company did that with Su Teatro. And so it was wonderful to see them come up in Denver. And Jesters is really thinking outside of the box with their Friday comedy things. Downtown Concert Series, we continue to have 6 a year. This year, what we did, since we do have 6 music stores and we had 6 concerts, we partnered with our music stores to provide the opening acts. And they were either students or teachers, so it really had a great local flair. And it's been a great year. If you haven't made down the concert series, we have one more right before the Coloradans in July. But we've really had great attendance and people have had a really good time downtown this year. Art Walk, again, great event. This year they increased sponsorships, activities, artists, and attendance. So it still continues to be a very strong 3 nights of the year here in downtown. Festival on Main last year, we added a Latino music stage, which was wonderful. We had some great acts. We added a beer garden, and it's amazing that we host about 18,000 people for 3 hours on a Friday night, and we close the streets about an hour and a half before it starts, and so there's a lot of quick setup, but it continues to be a wonderful draw for our community. We did some art collaborations with primary employers. We worked with the Longmont Area Economic Council. We matched them with artists, and they created just masterpieces, and the artists and employees worked together. It was a really good thing for the employers and for us. This year we're going to repeat that with some breezeway benches that will go in the 300 block breezeway. We had our holiday tree lighting where we used school groups, our local theaters, and theater students from CU Boulder. We featured the 12 days of downtown and talked about all the great things you can do while you're here. And we focus on authenticity, and so we had an event called Celebrating Longmont Then and Now last October with LPC. We helped celebrate their 100-year anniversary. This year on July 28th, the same day as the Coloradans, right in front of Martini's Bistro and Thompson Inn, we're going to be celebrating the legacies, the people that have really made Longmont what they are. We'll be giving a award to J.C. Penney, and as we all know, J.C. Penney had his first store here. It didn't go well, but he got his entrepreneurial spirit to learn the retail trade while he was here in Longmont, and then turned it into quite an industry. And so we know that they will continue to reinvent themselves in the future, and so we are just going to applaud the entrepreneurial spirit that they got here at the beginning. We'll also be applauding J.C. Penney's and Martini's Bistro and Thompson Inn for the things that they've done. When we're looking at then and now, those are 2 businesses that are really now and that have preserved the then in their properties. Guillermo Costa is going to be painting a mural in the 300 block breezeway. When we took down all of the breezeways, that became the perfect canvas, and artists were just dying to see something there. And so we got together, and the artist said, we think Gamma should do this, and so his mural will be called Longmont's Story, and it'll be more than just the buildings, it's the people, it's the stories, it's the legacies, it's the things that you want to tell your friend when you're walking them down Main Street. So that's what we're really trying to capture here. And we did even more. We had bikes decorated for Bike Month. The Goodnight Ride came downtown, through downtown this year. We're looking at Day of the Dead collaborations, and we brought the Broncos to town twice. So the Times Call did an article that says, what does the community think? Are we artsier? And the answer was yes, and we'll continue to work on that as well. Financial development, we're always continuing to look at increased sustainability. We are having some major changes next year as we turn 31. This year we created Downtown Longmont Community Ventures. It's a 501c3 that will work on the development of downtown A&E district and historic preservation. This will allow us to go after some grants and some different things. We're also looking at possibly a donor-advised fund through the Community Foundation. We approved incentives. We've had 8 DIP incentives, and we do partner with the city on these DIP incentives. We've had 8 so far this year, and that's huge. That's a lot of people that are investing in their businesses and looking for us to partner with them. We do have money allocated for other incentives that in either late 2013 or 2014, we will be offering to the DDA community. We did have our debt capacity increased in an election in November. And then we began planning for the next 20 years. The state of Colorado, when they first put DDAs together, they were for 30 years. About 2008, I think, 2008, they extended that for another 20 years. But in 20 years, we all know tax increment financing, we started collections in 83. That base year, that the increment rolls up to 1993, and then 50% of the existing increment after that goes back to the original taxing bodies. But the state did also give us the ability to negotiate with others, the other taxing bodies, to be able to keep that money in the DDA to continue investing in the things that we're doing. So we would just like to thank you so much for your commitment and your focus on downtown. It's been a long time that we're working on this. I think we have seen progress. I think we have some great momentum, and we're really hoping to continue in the future. So that's a quick overview. Hope it didn't take too long. And then we can kind of move on to some other requests, unless you have any questions right now.
Councilmember Simone.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. No questions, but I would really like to tip my hat to Kimberly. When we were up in Vail, I attended the presentation that was for downtown. I believe Salida, Colorado Springs, and Longmont presented, and by far the most informative and the most active and the most inventive and the most implementive was Longmont.
Thank you. All right, great. So in your packet, there were 3 different questions we want to discuss. The first one is restoring our mill levy to 5 mills. There is an operating mill levy along with the TIF that we have. It was voter approved when the DDA was established for up to 5 mills. That levy was reduced to about 3.31 mills in the early 90s. Currently, the mill levy generates about $131,000. If that mill levy was restored back to the 5 mills, it would bring $62,000 additional dollars, approximately. These are based on some earlier estimates generated throughout the DDA district. We did just find out that in 2014 we will realize some of the loss of Butterball through the property taxes, and where we're really feeling that is the personal property, that they had lots of equipment that was that has been gone now for a year, so we will not be generating that in 2014. So DDAs were they're bricks and mortar organizations, but really they can do anything that is in their plan for development. Our plan for development allows for things such as the arts entertainment district, such as marketing, along with the other development things we're doing. One of the things that if we do restore this and get the additional revenue is we can take some of that burden off of the TIF dollars for the marketing and that type of thing and put it back into the operating to really keep that momentum going. As we're seeing almost a 60% reduction in our TIF in the future, it's going to be much more important to try to, not more important, but it's going to be very important to keep those for the next big catalyst projects. We need to make sure that when there's a gap in something that's totally right for this community, we still have those dollars there. The marketing is an important piece, don't get me wrong, but I think by shifting that to some of those dollars into our general operating would really help. Another thing that we would like to look at with that those additional dollars is having cleaning outside the district. Right now, most of our cleaning is in the GID, but monthly we'd like to see some attention to others. The GID funds the GID, and so that's why it's looked at differently. But I think as our district grows and continues to get more traffic, we just really want to make sure that that first impression, no matter where you are in the DDA, is that it's a clean, safe, vibrant place to be. So that is what we're looking at, and we also will be making some of our temporary staff permanent. So that's what we would look at with those dollars. And so just wondered if you had any questions, if we wanted discussion. Everyone is here, and we can all try to answer questions.
I have a question. The mill levy, doesn't that have to be voted by the people in the DDA, or it's?
So it was voted for up to 5 mills, and so it can fluctuate down and up to that 5 mills without a vote. So it was voted for up to 5. It just can't
Okay,
exceed.
so you don't need a new vote, you just need approval from council, basically.
Correct, because
Okay.
council will set the mill levy.
Thank you. Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you remind me, because I don't remember off the top of my head, what the boundaries of the general improvement district are?
They're from 3rd to 6th, and basically Kaufman to Kimberg,
Okay.
the pedestrian core.
Okay. So, what does it, there's a lot of things that are not in the DDA that are excluded then, still? Okay. All right. I guess the core of downtown is really what I think of the GID, is that kind of the most important, kind of the heart of it all. So that's why when you say GID, that automatically, that's what I think of as downtown. So that's why I have to be reminded what the boundaries are.
Well, and I think we've seen a lot of great synergies that pretty soon that perception will be gone. And, really we're hoping that the whole DDA from First to where Roosevelt Park Apartments is what everyone's thinking of.
Councilmember Conway.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Kimberly, can you tell me, I don't know how many staff folks you have and how many are temporary?
So right now we have 2 full-time and 2 temps. And so we'll be looking at that whole staffing structure, though, to see if that makes sense or if we have the right mix for the goals that we have in the future, because we will be making some changes as we enter year 31. The 2 temps are part-time, by the way, and so we'll be looking at how that structure works best.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions on that issue.
Okay, so we will present our budget with the 5 mills unless
May I?
you hear otherwise.
Were you going to talk about the parking permit fees?
We have 2 other things, but I just
Okay.
wanted to do each thing
Okay.
separately,
Okay,
so I
great.
had the direction.
All right, thank you.
So next is the 50% of the TIF. As I said, half of all of those TIF dollars will go back to the original taxing bodies. So we are able to negotiate with anyone who's getting money back. For the city, that would be about $43,000 in the 31st year of the TIF. So we are working with the other taxing bodies as well. So we worked with the school district, and the school district has mills that are backfilled by the state. It's called the School Finance Act. And so what we asked the school district was, please allow those dollars to stay in Longmont. So it will not change their budget at all, but they can direct those dollars to us and then still continue to get their backfill from the state. So the school district has allowed us to do that until backfill goes away. And so when that goes away, then that deal will be over and those mills won't come to us anymore. So we did reach that agreement with them. We asked the county to consider a request. Their dollars will be $86,000 a year. And so we made a presentation at your joint meeting and are waiting to hear back from them. We could have negotiated with the General Improvement District to ask you for the 50% of the TIF, but the General Improvement District had more needs than funding that was coming in, and so we felt that since that is where most of our infrastructure is and where we are having some services, that we would not ask the GID board to put that money back into the TIF, because TIF actually would have made up for some of those shortcomings, and so it just made sense to keep that money into the GID. But we are here to ask the city if they would designate their 50% to stay in the TIF. One of the things that I've been talking with the city manager and other city staff is the infrastructure that I talked about. And we have a pretty nice infrastructure here, and we want to keep that nice. So if you did agree to allow us to keep investing that 50% into our TIF, we would designate half of that 50%, so 50% of the 50%, into a fund that we would use for maintenance of infrastructure. So those dollars would go into the TIF, but we would designate them each year for that infrastructure maintenance. And so that's what we're here to ask you today.
Sounds reasonable to me. Councilman Samari.
Well, I'm partial to the DDA since I'm the liaison to the DDA. So I will go ahead and make a motion that we do approve allowing that 50% to continue to be invested in the DDA.
I'll second it. Councilmember Levison.
Thank you. I'm also in support of this. Kimberly, are you going to put the money in a designated fund? Like we have we have certain designated funds that nothing gets touched or switched in and out of them because they can only be used. Is this really going to be a single, the half that'll go into the infrastructure fund? You'll want to build it up a little bit, maybe. I guess.
Jim's giving me the nod, so yes.
The nod is yes. And Jim's going to sit there and make sure not a penny, migrates anywhere else. So, yeah. Well, I think it's just very important to have, I know that, a state highway runs through Main Street. I know that we do, our street maintenance can do what we can do because it's public streets, curb to curb, but it's very important what happens from the curb to the frontage of the buildings, and keeping that clean and the brickwork in good shape. All of that is very important for, when people are the pedestrians, they notice all those things. Mm-hmm. And that's where you want to have your most of your money spent. If people are driving by it, 30 miles an hour, they won't notice a cigarette butt. But if they're walking, they will. So I think keeping the appearance up and then doing the maintenance is so critical because of the, everybody else keeping up their properties. If the rest of it is maintained, they're even more encouraged to keep the investment. So I think that the dollars will return. One question I wanted to ask you, in your presentation, you talked about the leveraging of $220,000 of private money. That even comes with a greater investment back to the district because in the next assessment, the property values will pop a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We should never fail to point out that returns additional dollars that way.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Kind of a quick question. So you've basically had the money for the last 30 years.
Yes.
Right? And so now it's your 31st year. How long are we approving it for?
So
this year?
Well,
in perpetuity? I'm just curious. Another 20 years?
Jim Golden, Director of Finance, Mayor, members of council. I think, under statute, it's supposed to be certified annually. So we can check in annually and make sure that the council agrees with it. We're not going to ask for an agreement in writing like we are with the school district. Instead, we're going to go based on the direction you give tonight. So we'll make sure we check back in the future years as well to make sure you consistently want to do that. And if you want to change that direction or if future council wants to do that, they can change it in any 1 year.
And you know the guy who writes the check, so we're okay. And I guess the other question is, I understand half of the 50%, but what would the other half be used for?
it would just go into the TIF fund, and that's where we follow our plan of development and where we are able to invest in catalyst projects like Roosevelt Park Apartments, like the Alleyscape. And so it's not designated right now for anything. I think as we would build and find the next great thing, it would go into that investment.
Okay. Well, yeah, no further questions. I just think you guys are doing a great job. And so thank you. I will be voting for this.
Okay, I don't see any other further questions. Let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And one last quick thing, we wanted to have a quick discussion with you about parking. The LDDA board has been talking about considering increasing parking rates in our parking lots. Currently, those rates have been the same for a parking permit. So this is just the 60% that City Council had said of these public lots should be permitted. They've been about the same for 7 years. And so the board is looking to increase that and wanted to see how city council felt about that. They have some dollar figures in mind. We are going to talk to our block captains tomorrow and look at that permit fee. And we also would like to come back in the near future and ask council for permission to permit the 2 new lots that we have, the 200 block lot, which was not in the permit pool when we originally, when council originally allowed us to permit those lots, and Roosevelt Park Apartments when that comes online. As the DEA board looks at those, they would probably keep the 200 lot a little bit more affordable because it may be a little bit more of a walk for folks. And then if people have trouble, they can use that lot. And Roosevelt Park Apartments would probably be at a higher rate because it's covered parking. And we really look at parking throughout all of the other downtowns, and that's a very similar model that others do. And then keep our core lots. One of the things that we're looking at is right now, at best, the parking fund breaks even based on all the maintenance and all of everything that we need to do. We did use that parking fund to invest in the 200 block lot, and we will, as we continue to grow and thrive, we will continue to have parking needs. And so this money would help rebuild that parking fund as well. And so as we're looking at parking in the future, not only are we maintaining what we have, but building that parking in the future. And so we just wanted to have a quick discussion here to make sure that you felt that we were on the right path. And then we're going to talk to some folks at our block captains tomorrow, and then we'll come back with some recommendations.
Councilmember Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Kimberly, we had a discussion also with the county commissioners around their building of a parking structure to accommodate their employees. Is there any possibility that they would allow some limited number of permitted spaces in there to help out the DDA?
I don't know. I've never asked that question, but certainly we could. It's right next to one of our lots that has, well, it's between actually 2 of our lots that have permits. And so in early discussions, it would be great to even see how do we maximize all of those parcels of land together, but also seeing if they have any room for permits.
And the best thing would be to maximize the parcels, but that's another partnership, and we're already got ourselves in so many partnerships that we can't juggle more than like 10 balls at a time right now.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Kimberly, how much more are we talking?
So right now, initial thoughts, it's $20 for a permit, increasing that to $28 in the core, keeping that 200 block at 20, and looking at, I think it's 36 for the covered. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at right now.
Okay. And how many permits would you be selling in the 200? Because right now it's what, 2-hour parking?
60% of 47.
60. Okay. Yeah. And how many parking spaces do we have in? Does the DDA have in the Roosevelt place?
I believe it's 35, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. I'm just curious. Well, as Councilmember Levison pointed out, I mean, we have county staff here tonight. You might be willing to hit up them about their parking situation at their facility.
So we have been talking, and we'll continue talking, so.
I'd be interested because I believe that's been floated around councils and councils before about partnering with the county about their parking needs and parking facilities. So it'd be interesting to see what their if there's some sort of collaboration that could occur.
Well, I think that their use is going to be mostly a daytime use, so perhaps we could use evening uses of some of their facilities, perhaps.
Should be great.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Quick question, price sensitivity. We're going to talk to block captains, but I'm just curious. My understanding was, I think I asked this before, and I don't remember the exact number, but there's a waiting list for all these parking spaces, right?
Yeah.
There is a waiting list.
How big is it? So of available spaces, how many people are on the waiting list?
So.
It's here.
It's here. 28.
There's 28 people for 40. How many spaces? No, but how many spaces? I'm just trying to figure out what percentage
It's on the waiting list.
of waiting.
I don't know that. It depends, because sometimes people are only want the lot they want,
Right.
and so wouldn't necessarily transfer to other lots.
So we haven't done price sensitivity, but gut check is that we can afford the uptick in price.
Yeah.
But some people want certain lots, and they'll be willing to pay for it.
Right.
Okay, understood.
And it ebbs and flows, and so one of the things that has been hard is as new businesses want to come in, they'll call and say, well, we're thinking of coming here, but we want 14 spots. And with a waiting list of this many people, you don't have that option. And so by adding these lots and having permits, I think it would be great to not have a waiting list and still have some in demand, so we can really help make some of those matches. And so that's another benefit to having some available permits.
Councilmember Sawant.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Let me put that increase in perspective. When we talk about going from $20 to $28, that's an average of 27 cents a day increase. So it shouldn't be an issue at all.
Unless you can't afford coffee.
Well, coffee, I mean, if you're spending your money on coffee, you're paying at least $1.85 for a regular cup of coffee and up to $5 for premium. So 26 cents doesn't even cover the tax on a cup of coffee.
Sounds like you're on the right track for raising, as the consensus currency.
Okay, super. If there's then no other questions, thank you so much for your time, and I'd like to thank the board and everyone.
Excuse me, do we have to give you any kind of formal direction on the mill levy tonight? Okay.
Mayor and Council, you'll be acting on the mill levy during the budget process. I think what Kimberly, if you feel like she shouldn't be doing that, you might want to tell her tonight so she doesn't prepare a budget that's based on a 5 mill levy and then have to cut it later on. But you don't have to act on it until October.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Do any of the board members have anything to comment on? Anything you want to tell us? Bob? Joe?
All right.
Nothing? Well, thanks for coming in.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time for first call, public invited to be heard. First person on the list is Ryan Conrad. Please come down and state your name and address for the record. And he will be followed by John Peck.
Am I on? Okay. So, my name is Ryan Craigrud. I live at 615 Lincoln Street. I am president of Bicycle Longmont, and I'm before you tonight to let you know that we support items 11A and 11C. 11C, I'll start with that one first. That has to do with the Pavlakis open space parcel that you'll be taking a look at, the master plan for tonight. Bicycle Longmont is super, I guess we might be stoked to have that in front of you tonight because we believe that there is a quote-unquote rad bike park put into this as well, if I can get the terminology correct. Anyway, no, seriously though, we are very excited that the master plan includes a bike park. This, for Bicycle Longmont, has been a true grassroots effort. This is something that has come up from our members. It wasn't something that started at the board level thinking, oh gosh, wouldn't it be great if. This is something that we have heard about time and again for at least the last 5 years. And then when Belmont Bike Park opened, everybody was looking, down the road saying, hey, they got one. And we're like, oh yeah, they got one. Work with us on it. Maybe we can get something here in Longmont. But then folks who are mountain bikers are very much into going to other communities to do rides and so forth and epics and so on. And then people started coming back saying, well, Fairplay has one, and Buena Vista has one, and Salida has one, Durango has one. What's the deal? Why don't we do this? And again, he said, decisions are made by those who show up. And so with this process, Paula has done an amazing job with outreach. Bicycle Longmont members and avid Bike supporters in town have done an excellent job of showing up at these different meetings, and we've worked hand in hand to get this before you this evening. And we are really excited to not only be partners of the city on this, but also the kayaking community, as well as other user groups that have been a part of the process through the entire thing. I think that Parks has done just an incredible job at getting people involved in this process and also putting forth a real quality project before you tonight. So we're very excited to support that. The second piece, quickly, is the bus pass item that's before you this evening. One of the things that Bicycle Longmont is a big proponent of is affordable transportation. To that end, we work with Boulder County's Human Services or Family Services to help get folks onto bikes when they can't afford to get around town any other way. And one of the things that does come up, and there's been numerous studies done on the economics of poverty, that it is expensive to be poor. And bus fare is expensive when you're poor. If we can do this model project, I think that is going to be really good for Longmont. It's going to be good for the folks who are using the buses. It'll get ridership up. RTD will take notice. And lastly, I want to say LDDA has done an awesome job downtown. Bike Longmont's also had a great time working with the Downtown Development Authority as well. So thank you very much.
John Peck?
Is this on? Yep. Hi. My name is Joan Peck from 1935 Spruce Avenue, and I'm here tonight to encourage council to vote in favor of participating in the Boulder County grant application to provide the free bus passes in Longmont. Since 2002, RTD has been raising the local bus fare while decreasing the service hours and the number of stops. And because of this, ridership has consistently declined. RTD tends to make changes based upon input from its stakeholders, and I used to think that the stakeholders were the riders, but I've soon learned that the stakeholders are actually the politicians. So the decisions that you make are what affect changes on the RTD board. I realize that agreeing to participate in this program, committing approximately $63,000 each year, is only the very first step in the process. If you approve or if you vote to participate in the program, then the grant has to be written and presented to the DRCOG board. And then if that funding is granted, Judy Lubauer, our RTD director, will take it to the RTD board and try to convince them that we need to buy that fare box. It's a risk committing all of these funds to a pilot program. We don't know if allowing residents to ride free is going to increase revenue, bring people downtown to our businesses, etc. But I've asked this question of several businesses in Longmont, and they have supported us, and they would like you to know about their support. They would like you to take this risk so they can see if it does affect business. So thank you. And the other thing I would like to say for people watching at home is that this program is totally separate from the RTD rail program. They are not the same. So participating in this program does not mean that our director will not continually work for rail. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Madam Bigelow?
I just turned that off. It's Ben Bigelow, Council, Mayor and Council. I am here to let you know that I'm disappointed that I did not see a competitive swimming pool in the Parks and Rec master plan. I know there's a lot of people in the aquatic community who did put out their voice saying we need one, and it was a little bit stifled, I felt, by the process that was used to develop that plan. I'm a small part of that aquatic community. I'm a master's swimmer. We swim Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday mornings from 6 to 7:15 a.m. And my experience over the last 4 years with the group is that we've grown, but we've grown to the point where we have 6 or 7 swimmers in a lane often. And if you have swum and you swim with a group of people hopefully close to your speed, and you push off the wall every 5 seconds, when you start to get more than 5 people in the lane, the first person to push off is on your feet by the time the last person pushes off, and you just can't do it. So we're overcrowded, and when somebody shows up and wants to join us, they find pretty quickly that there's not enough room to join. We use 4 lanes. That's at Centennial. We're at Sunset Pool for the 3 months of the summer, which helps ease things quite a bit, but that's only 3 months. So I'd like to recommend that you guys consider a competitive pool. A couple of things to think about that I don't think often get thought about. When people hear swimming pool and competitive pool, they hear expense. And yes, it is an investment, but I think there are a lot of hidden pluses for a community. A couple of those are local business. I grew up swimming competitively, and swim practice is typically 2 hours long, and my parents would drop me off at the pool, and then they would go do their shopping. Boulder County is very short on competitive pool space, not just Longmont, but Boulder County, and if a pool were built, if a good competitive pool were built, say on the southwest side of town, it would suck community in from Lafayette, Louisville, Boulder, Niawot, Gun Barrel, who would come drop their kids off for swim team or for diving lessons, synchronized swimming, water polo, whatever it is. They're dropping them off and they're going to go find something to do for 2 hours. And that's shopping. That's going to King Soopers. That's going to Target. That's spending money in our community. And it's bringing them into our community in a way that they haven't seen our community before. I have a lot of friends in Lafayette, Louisville, who had never been to Longmont except for to come to my house. It doesn't happen. But we can pull them here. Finally, you can host a lot of swim meets with a good pool. And one community that you could benchmark, Federal Way in Washington State, is about a half hour south of Seattle. It's 91,000 people, probably a very similar demographic to Longmont. They have got a competitive pool that hosts national level swim meets and fills up hotels for miles surrounding every time they do that. I don't have any hope that we could ever hold a Federal Way swimming pool here, but there's a next level that we could fill hotels in Longmont on weekends when business travel isn't here. And finally, one last, a couple of thoughts from a break-even perspective. I may be over my time. If we had a water park associated with something like this, it brings in community from a recreational, helps offset costs that are often associated with a competitive pool. And if any of you have ever been to the Bay down in Broomfield or have heard conversation on the Bay, I know that people from Longmont go to the Bay. My sister lives in Louisville, a friend from Longmont. They met in Broomfield to go to the Bay. I mean, it's something that happens. So another opportunity to bring people to Longmont. And one final benchmark community that we could look at is just north of us. Loveland has 3 competitive swimming pools. And Longmont has 1 for 5 high schools. And it's the only pool we got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Oh, could you state your address? You forgot. Missed that.
The address is 1110 Windermere Circle.
All right, thank you. Robert Alvarado?
My name is Robert Alvarado. I live at 1421 Trask Street in Longmont, and I just need to comment on this thing that's going on with RTD. And as she stated before, in the last few years, the endless cycle that has been going on as far as the ridership going down, the fares going up, and the justification being for the lack of bus service that the ridership is going down. What RTD refuses to recognize is they concentrate on the main streets. They do not concentrate on the suburbs. That is Sophomore Park, Longmont Estates, Dollhouse Village, even Fox Hill, where your ridership, I think if they were to expand, if you were to approve this $63,000 thing that's going on, if you could expand the buses, the routes to these areas, you could double, almost triple your ridership, and there would go the justification RTD has for cutting back on routes and increasing the fares, because the fares have constantly gone up. I think that the revenue that would come in from these, well, let's take the students and the people that commute to and from work by car or to school by car, that would come into the city of Longmont, even between 3rd and 6th Avenue, like the LDDA was discussing, that we could get some money in there and improve that area that looks dismal right now. You see tattoo parlors, bars, and secondhand stores. I think we can do better, with all due respect to the DDA. I think that if we improve the look of the main street between 3rd and 6th, even 7th Avenue, I think we get more money into the city of Longmont, and I think the buses are an integral part of that. But we need to expand those bus routes, and I think this would, funding would help in that respect. That is, let's get these people into Longmont. People, once the word spreads about the free or the reduced bus fares, they would ride the buses into Longmont, as opposed to riding them out or getting in their car and driving to, say, Boulder or Denver or Lafayette and spending whatever money they have out there. I mean, I think the mall is a perfect example of that. They had the 324 going down there. Originally, it was a 325. 325 went by the wayside. Now the 324. And I think, in my opinion, that really hurt them all. And I think that if we approve that, this funding, I think it would help not only the people of Longmont, but Longmont itself, revenue-wise and otherwise. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carrie Carbo?
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Kerry Carbaugh. My address is 1211 Linden Street. And I'm going to be brief because a lot of the comments I was going to make have been made already, but I do want to state that I am in favor of the RTD bus pass reduction or fare elimination for local residents. I do agree with some of the things that Robert said. I think in order to really fully increase the ridership, it'll become imperative if City Council has any way to sort of put some pressure on RTD to expand the routes, to expand the service. If it takes people, as it does myself, 45 minutes to get from roughly the hospital to Pike and Hover, each direction twice a day to go to work, so that's about an hour and a half that I spend on the bus just to get across Longmont. Reduced or free bus passes alone are not going to double, triple, or tenfold the ridership. They will increase it some. But I do support the idea. I think it's a great start. I think that if RTD can see these little tiny buses with 30 or 40 people on them all the time, standing room only, that then we have the justification and the pressure, as was stated earlier, that's going to have to come from City Council, because we bus riders have little or no say when it comes to RTD and what the RTD does in the city. But I do think that this is a really good start, and I do encourage City Council. $61,000, I think you'll make that up in taxes in less than a year, in the taxes that will be generated by people spending money here in Longmont. So I do support and encourage City Council to consider this very seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Archer? Please come down and state your name and full name and address for the record.
My name is Darren Archer. I live at 1147 Sherman. Okay, like he had just mentioned, a lot of people have made about the RTD. A lot of comments I was going to address have been covered. I commute to Boulder 6 days a week. It costs me $190 a month. I come home with $680. My rent is $540. So I find myself in a food bank very often. Plus, I need to take local buses, and that constitutes another $30 a week. I used to work for a company in Boulder, BJ's Pizza Grill, and they had an EcoPass system. They went out of business. The company I work for now, presently, does not have EcoPasses. So I believe that these passes, if this was to be initiated, would be helping a lot of people, you know, in as far as saving their money and getting groceries from the store. Second thing I'd like to address is if and when this was initiated, how would people go about registering, and how would the delegation be distributed? And lastly, how would this just be, these passes just be local, or is it regional? Or would can you go to Boulder, Denver, or would it be a card, paper, so you could add, or you have to just pay a little extra money on top of the pass? That's kind of where I was lost at right there.
Well, you can get with Phil, our transportation person, and he can fill in the details for you.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. All right, thank you for your time, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council.
Thank you. All right, that's it for first call public invited to be heard. I think now might be a good time to take a 10-minute break. We've been going since 5:30, so let's take a 10-minute break, all right? All right. Let's come back to order. Okay, can you introduce the first item?
Yes, Mayor Coombs, your first item is ordinance 2013-30, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2013. There is no formal staff presentation, but Teresa's here to answer questions if you have any.
Okay. Does anyone from council have any questions? I don't see any questions. Can we have a motion? Oh, yeah, excuse me. I need to open this up for public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to speak on this item tonight? I guess seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Councilman Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move ordinance 2013-30.
Okay, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0.
Your next item is the consent agenda. Item 9A is ordinance 2013-31, a bill for an ordinance amending 14.05.070 of the Longmont Municipal Code on cash in lieu of non-historical water rights transfers. Public hearing and second reading is scheduled for July 23rd, 2013. Item 9B is ordinance 2013-32, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the water exchange agreement between the city and Lower Latham Reservoir Company. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for July 23rd. Item 9C is a resolution 2013-64, authorizing the Director of Public Works and Natural Resources or designee to enter into agreements, leases, and exchanges concerning reuse water rental, surplus raw water rental, and water rights during the 2014 water year. Item 9D is Resolution 2013-65, approving an intergovernmental agreement between the city, the Longmont Downtown Development Authority, and the St. Vrain Valley School District RE1J concerning the allocation of Longmont Downtown Development Authority tax increment financing revenue. And we do not need to pull anything as a staff.
Okay. Councilmember Witt.
I would like to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Okay, passes 7-0.
Your next item is general business item 11A, Longmont Local Bus Pass Program, and Phil Greenwald is here to make that presentation.
Mayor, members of council, good morning, or good evening. Don't know where I've been. Phil Greenwald, Transportation Planner with the Economic Development Department. The item before you tonight on the EcoPal, or the PASS program, you've been discussing quite a bit lately, so I'm going to go through the summary real quick just to kind of set the framework for tonight's discussion. This is the request for matching funds for a federal grant, a TPM grant. Would be $63,000 per year for 2 years. And the money comes from the street and transportation fund piece. So that's basically the program that we're talking about. This program would provide the local pass portion of that money. So it would basically be a free local ride for folks on the 300 series buses. Also, the transfer amount, so that $2.25 that is currently being spent on local buses, that transfer amount would go into a regional ride too. So if you're going to Boulder or Denver, $2.25 then would be deducted is the plan from those fares. So this is a 2-year grant. There's another chance for funding, for federal funding with the actual TIP cycle that starts again next year. And so we would if this is successful, if it's a successful program, there are some other opportunities for funding. And some examples of that have been the FLEX program from Fort Collins to Longmont. That program has been working on the same type of dollar system and the same federal grant dollars. And they've been able to supplement that with some additional monies as well. So it's continuing into at least the end of 2013 as we know for right now. But that's one example of one of the more successful programs. Again, Boulder County is applying for this grant on our behalf and for the Boulder County residents in Longmont. We have 2 staff members here today, George Gershel, the Director of Transportation, and also Scott McCary, so the Alternative Modes Director. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Again, we've mentioned this in other meetings before, but we've tried very hard to work with RTD to come up with solutions to get more people riding the buses. And one solution was the fare reduction request that we made not long ago, about 6 months ago. And we heard back that there are some programs that we could go through. They're extremely cumbersome, as we mentioned before. So those were not things that we thought we could pursue at this time, because it did require basically a full-time equivalent employee to run some of those programs to make that work. The other piece that we also did was a strategic transit plan that we adopted with our First and Main revitalization and transit plan. That also was only partially implemented, so we did try to work and try to increase the efficiency of our bus systems, but that again didn't work out. The successful items, though, that have been worked on under this and other federal grants like it are, again, that Flex program has been very successful, and it continues, and also the Bolt program, which the county is working on as well. These didn't require a lot of money from us, so this is the first time we're really requesting council take action and approve that $63,000 per year for the bus pass program. And if you have any questions, I'm certainly available to answer those, and also the folks from the county.
Well, first, I just wanted to kind of clarify for everybody that our part is only 10% of the total value of the program, so our money is getting leveraged, by 90% by the Dr. Cog grant and the county money. So, Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I don't have any questions. We've been talking about this for a while, and my fear, and it remains my belief, how I read this situation is that we are now committed and married to RTD. We can't get out. And maybe we can, but we can't. At least that's what I'm told. We pay a lot of tax dollars in for bus service that I am of the opinion and belief that we don't get. I think, and I fear, and I believe that I don't think RTD is going to change. I think we're at the end of the line. I am pro public transportation. Love buses. I know there are people in our community who don't have cars, and during the winters they don't have bikes. I would like to see more routes. I would like to see cheaper routes. My brain tells me not to do this. However, I'm not the be-all and end-all on this. I'm hearing from you that the recommendation that we do this. I read the Times Call editorial. I had the opportunity to talk with Judy Lubauer. Is that how I pronounce that? What is it? Lubauer. Lubau. At great length. And essentially, my understanding is that we hear the word risk. We don't know what's going to happen, but the reality is there's no other option. So if we want to increase ridership, what else is there? So I think that we're wasting our money, but I don't think we have an option if we want to increase ridership. So I will be voting for this, although I really, really hope I'm wrong.
Councilmember Hutt.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I don't think there's anybody who can say that we've had a warm and cozy relationship with RTD, and we have really advocated for better service in Longmont. And whenever I talk about transportation, specifically dealing with RTD, we need to make the distinction. There's the fast tracks, which is an ongoing concern that we're talking about. But right now what we're talking about is the local service. We have regional service and we have local service. Our regional service is pretty good. Our local service, not so much. And as Phil was mentioning, we have tried various ways to work with RTD in order to get more routes, or at least more efficient routes in Longmont. Some of the ideas were supported by RTD and some were not. Many were not. And so Councilmember Bagley is correct that, is it fair? No, it is not fair. But this is an option that we have available. It has worked for Lyons and Nederland, and so there's a good chance that it could work here in Longmont to increase ridership. I do know that it did not work in Douglas County. They tried a similar thing, and they just couldn't get ridership up above a critical point, although that was a county, so it's not very analogous to Longmont. So it is an experiment, and what we're trying to do is gather data to see if the fares are reasonable, would enough people ride it so to justify better routes in Longmont? And the answer could be yes, it could be no, but until we try it, we're not going to know for sure. And I think it's still going to be upside, because for 2 years, our people who are transit dependent are going to get a little help. And I'm not going to begrudge them that. So I agree with Councilmember Bagley that it's totally not fair. However, here we are, and this is an option available to us, and I think that we ought to at least give it an honest try and see if we can't introduce more of our city members to the concept of riding around on a bus.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. No, and I would agree with both members of council. Regional service is great to an extent. As Councilmember Bagley's pointed out several times, we are paying for services locally that we are not getting. In fact, we all received an email from RTD board member Lubau saying that our local service isn't great, and I agree. And before, and I stated back to her, our service isn't great. And even before she was elected, and I know she's working on that, trying to find creative ways to make our local routes better and improving in service with RTD. Hopefully this will work. I see this as the Hail Mary pass of making it work. As the mayor stated, our amount is 10%, leveraging 90. But again, it's a 2-year pilot program. Like 2 years. We'll see what happens in 2 years. Hopefully ridership will go up and RTD will notice, and board member Lubau will be able to go to the RTD board and say, look, ridership is up. But what happens if ridership doesn't go up? You always have to look at both sides. I guess the one question I do have, Phil, and I don't see you, which is usually unusual because you're very tall. There you are. The podium, gotcha. How are we going to be advertising for this? What's the education piece?
Mayor and Councilmember Santos, that's a great question. The idea is that the program kind of sells itself. Once you get the information out there that there's a free pass that's available to every resident, get that involved into, say, library or recreational programs where there's already a pass available, and then have that part of those programs as well. And there'll probably be some outreach. We talked about this a little bit at the break. There'll probably be some outreach as well just like there was in Lions in Netherlands, so that people really get the idea that that pass is available and have volunteers and folks taking pictures and getting people's passes to them as quickly as possible. So,
So I'm assuming it's going to be in the city line. I'm sure the Times Call, Scott's here. Times Call will pick it up. City line, anything possible that we have, website, you name it.
probably posting at the bus stops as well.
Okay. I'm willing to give it a shot for 2 years and see what happens. Hopefully, ridership will increase. I don't see it as throwing money away. I do see it as an investment, as the mayor said. It's a nice leverage on a match. I'm willing to give it a shot. I just hope people will recognize that this is, again, I think our last best chance at improving ridership locally, and hopefully they'll take advantage of it.
Well, one thing that kind of gives me a glimmer of hope is back in the early 2000s, before they raised the rates, our ridership was tracking up at a steep rate, and when they raised the rates, it just dropped. Yeah. Well, just one thing followed the other. So that gives me a lot of hope. I also am more impressed with how the county commissioners are working on our behalf on this and helping to write the grant. And so I really want to thank the commissioners for coming up with this idea that I think is pretty novel and creative. So again, thanks. So I'm definitely for it. I just think that the price that we're paying is not that much of an investment. I mean, we pay that for just a study where we get nothing, so we might as well get, $60,000 that we put into something where people get at least, ride around and get cheap transfers on the regional routes too. So I'm definitely for it. Councilmember Henley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I am a bus rider, so I can tell you regional service is not great. It is at best adequate if you work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I would not only, I see this as not only increasing our local ridership, but possibly our regional service as well, because people will be able to get to the buses. It would help those with disabilities, those who cannot drive, visually impaired, which I relate to. It will help those who are economically challenged, our students and our elderly, and those who are concerned with our environment as well. I am for this. I think it'll work, and I think it's a great idea, and I'll be voting for it.
Thank you, Mary Coombs. Well, Councilperson Finley, you said it eloquently. I can't say it any better. The question that I have, Phil, is we're committing for 2 years, right? What if the ridership does not increase in the first year? Do we have the option to pull out, or are we stuck for the 2 years?
I'm not sure. I might have to defer George.
Thank you. George Kirschel, Transportation Director for Boulder County. There's always the option of returning the remaining grant amount if it's not working.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Levison.
I'm going to jump on Councilmember Finley's comments and also add that the way the system runs right now, there's a disincentive for people to use a local bus to get to the regional bus. And in the case of people that buy multi-bus passes, as does my student who has many friends in Boulder, she can get between Boulder and Longmont with a multi-pass packet for $1.80. And she has to scramble for change if she wants to go and visit her friend on the other side of town and pay $2.25. And, it just makes no blooming sense. So it's going to help my household because I will say, take your library card, show it, and don't ask me for a ride. So I know, I rarely get a positive comment out of a 15-year-old these days. But when I mentioned the joint meeting and what we discussed with the county commissioners, I got a big yes from a 15-year-old because she thought it would be an incredible advantage for her and her friends getting around town. And I can assure you, once in her generation, a lot of them have no interest in driving, and they'd much rather figure out the bus themselves, and 10 of them can get on the bus, or 12 of them, or 15 of them, and they can go somewhere and feel independent. And I think that there's also that part of younger people learning how to do these things, because eventually they'll be in a city somewhere and cabs are expensive. And it's a great thing to learn how to use public transportation when you're young. I'll just give Councilmember Finley another nod, because the experience of her children were that they didn't learn how to ride the bus, but they don't do public transportation, is what she said. But my kids do, and I think it's really having that early skill built and not being afraid of being on a public bus. So I'm much in favor of this, and I'm going to be the optimist and say, I'll say it's going to increase ridership, and hopefully we'll have standing room only. One other thing I would like to see is whether or not we can keep track of where the riders are going, because as part, I don't know where, Phil's being hidden by the podium again. Yeah, hi. You're not tall enough. We can see you over the podium when you're sitting. So one of the things that I remember when we were working on the First and Main plan was the transportation planner, the consultant that was working with the lead group, that had the idea around looking at mapping the bus routes and then seeing where the actual nodes of service were as far as time windows, and then having slight deviations that you could make for somebody maybe that was a handicapped person, or not able to walk 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 blocks to a bus stop and still be able to service those people efficiently. I'm wondering whether or not we can't collect some data to find out where people are going frequently and where they actually started from, whether it was a 10-block walk or an 8-block walk, because that's data that would be very important to demonstrate to RTD why these particular routes may have gone up. And looking at demographics, I'm not sure if we can collect any demographic information. As far as the mechanism, whether or not the library card are they going to note whether or not it's a youth library card or if it's an adult? That would be very good information to gather, to see whether or not the buses are higher ridership during the school year or after school times, whatever. I'm just hoping that we collect some data that we can then present to RTD to make a stronger case.
Councilmember,
I actually do have 2 questions, and I don't know if George would be the best person to ask. So, George, you already preemptively put in the application to Dr. Cog, and so even if we fully support it, we still have to receive the grant from Dr. Cog, so it's not all in this body. Just because we vote for it doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen. So chances on getting the grant, also, is RTD kind of, have we gotten any indication from them if they will honor that request if made to them?
We have been working with the directors, both directors from Boulder County, who are advocating for it. We are in conversations with RTD staff about how it can be made to work in a manner that fits their needs and all of our needs. And should Dr. Cog not approve this grant, we're actively looking for other sources of money that could fit in if for some reason it's not approved. So we being Scott McCary on our staff are actively looking for all possible sources of money to help make this work. So in summary, the money's not in the bank, but we're looking under every bank rug we can to find it.
Thank you. And also, I did want to say thank you to George and also to Scott for working with Phil on this and really looking for a way out of the box that we're in. So time period, when will we know about the grant?
We should know in the next couple months from Dr. Cog whether it will be approved or not, and a similar time frame for the other options that might be available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bagley. Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I know it's bad form as a politician to spit things out in public, as well as maybe not give your council members a heads up, but I didn't think about this until I just heard people talking. So, heads up. But I guess my question is, if we're going to do this, and it sounds like we are, would there be some benefit in looking at enhancing our city fleet by a couple of buses to actually run the suburban routes, to kind of hook up with the RTD routes? And then, I'm not, this isn't a suggestion, this is just a question. Having a couple buses that allow people that live in, either on Pace or Francis, not to have to hike 2 miles to a bus stop. As I'm sitting here listening to people, it might enhance ridership on the main routes, which would allow us to collect more data and tell RTD, look, the ridership would be there if we had the routes. That's one. Two, it would also give us a toe in the water as to how to run a city bus system so we don't face the Castle Rock dilemma if we ever do opt out of RTD. And we also know, three, that even if doing that we don't increase ridership, we've got a real problem. Those were my thoughts. So it's just a question.
Mayor and Councilmember Bagley, the entire bus system for Longmont, not exactly true, but the public transit system in Longmont is all run by RTD. So any extra fleet vehicles are really going to have to come from them. The other piece of it is the VIA transit, it used to be called Special Transit, now VIA. They do run some, and they've been coordinating with RTD to get some of the call-in ride, where you kind of have that door-to-door, curb-to-curb service, they call it. That's available as well, but everything else is run by RTD. So we don't have a fleet for city. We don't have a city fleet of buses.
The idea would be to get one. Get one.
Yeah. Becomes a very expensive endeavor to start running those buses, and maybe city manager has more information on that from St.
Thanks, Phil. No. Actually, in the two communities I've worked in the past, we have run transit systems, and so I think it's something we can look at. But I will say that the capital cost of 2 buses is significant, and then you really need that long-term commitment to get the dollars out of the capital expense, and so it is something we can look at. I think part of the discussion in terms of this particular initiative is we are making the point of we need more routes to really determine whether or not this is going to be successful. And so one of our hopes is that as we start seeing ridership increase, we will get those additional routes in terms of the RTD process. Going back to your question, we can look at it. I will say there are some significant costs associated with it. And then it's really what works best and how do you interconnect those, and what is there's routing software that's involved too. So it's a little more complicated than just putting the 2 in and going forward, but it is something we can examine.
You just buy 2 buses.
Yeah.
I was thinking horse-drawn carriages.
Well, I think part of it too, in my discussions with VIA and some of the other groups, is I think it's also engaging in those conversations to see how you can create more cooperation in the services.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve.
Okay, let's vote. Pass 7-0.
Mayor Coombs, your next item is updates to the forestry ordinances, and Kim Sugar will introduce this.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Kim Sugar, Natural Resources Manager. We're here tonight to have a discussion on 2 proposed forestry ordinance updates. We are just looking for discussion and feedback and direction from council on these ordinances, and we are not looking for direct action on them tonight. The purpose of updating the ordinance is a variety of reasons. One, to promote the health and safety of the citizens of Longmont, to protect the Longmont consumers, protect the health and safety of the city's urban forests, and clarify the intent of the ordinances, which actually the majority of the intent and language, well, the intent is the same as the previous ordinances, but we're here to clarify those ordinances and ensure that they can be implemented. And last, and provide clarity, transparency, responsibility, and accountability to the public, for the Longmont staff, as well as the contractors, as it relates to the urban forestry program. These ordinances do support our existing forestry program and the department's vision and mission. So we are not changing anything that we are doing. These ordinances do support our current actions and activities. And with that, I'm going to introduce Ken Wicklund, the city forester, to do a quick presentation.
Evening, Mayor, Council. Before I begin, I'd really like to take a moment and give a thank you, if I could. This has been a long process for us, and a thanks to Kim and a thanks to Dale Rademacher for kind of pushing us to get this going more. A special thanks to Ernie Wintergers and Andy Keppel, who's here tonight. They're part of the forestry staff. We've had numerous meetings trying to make this, jive and make this work. Code enforcement, particularly Shannon Stadler, she's had a lot of input in this. City Attorney's Office, particularly Ed Yasis, worked closely with him to make this kind of come into play. Numerous contractors, actually local contractors, have really wanted this to happen, and they help kind of push this process too. We've consulted with different city foresters, different city departments, had numerous forestry staff look at this package, the same package you're looking at, and even the urban forestry liaison with the Colorado State Forest Service looked at it recently, and he says, wow. And the reason he says that is because so many cities need to update the ordinance, and they want to do it, but it's just a painstaking, difficult process. We're so busy with doing other things. We like to work on trees. I mean, we just don't like to, deal with some of the administrative stuff that really needs to be dealt with. So on that note, I'm going to get started here. So I got some slides to kind of go through. There's basically two chapters in the code, chapter 6.88, tree contracts licenses, and 1324, trees and plants. The original ordinance was written in 1981, I believe. It was probably done by Gene Craning. That's 32 years ago, and this ordinance has not changed really hardly at all since 81. And as Ken says, the foundation of the ordinance is basically staying the same. What our intent here is just make it more comprehensive, create better clarity to the ordinance, and hopefully in the process have better enforcement. And this will help code enforcement tremendously. It will help us. It'll help police. It'll help just the general public. So what's also kind of new, though, is our standards and specifications. We've written, you saw the 35-page document on standards and specs. It's not entirely new because we do have standards and specs when we work with contractors for city bids on tree maintenance issues. But it's important to note that the ISA, the International Society of Arboriculture, and the ANSI, American National Standards Institute, those are the two leading driving forces behind tree maintenance, tree safety, and it's what most arborists refer to, these two organizations. So we've kind of modeled these standards and specs after them, and we call it the Reader's Digest condensed version. And there's a lot of literature there, and that 35 pages kind of highlights, if you will, a lot of what's in those documents. We believe we need to follow those documents or those standards and specs just as private contractors need to follow them too. These standards and specs are based on science, based on research, based on common sense, but they're the guide. They're the guide that we need to follow. There's another thing that's important, I think, for council to realize is that there's another standard out there that says you're supposed to trim your tree, whether it's a city tree or public or a private tree, once every 5 to 10 years. There's kind of a window there. Trees need to be maintained, and our goal is to get on a 7-year trim cycle, and right now we're presently on a 12-year trim cycle. We don't fit within the standard, so that's a concern. We need to work on that. And another thing that's really interesting to note, or most people probably don't know, is that we work with lots of licensed contractors, lots of tree workers, and it is actually the most hazardous profession that we have in the city limits of Longmont. It's the second most dangerous profession in the United States. And it's, people don't know that. Think about it. You have a person working in a tree with a chainsaw tied in, working 60 foot off the ground. There's some issues there, the dynamics of all the wood moving around and stuff. So, I think that's good to know. I think that's good to understand. And unfortunately, we've known a lot of people who've been injured in this field. We've been known fatalities locally in this field. So it's something to be aware of. Next, here. Trees benefit our community numerous ways. We did a tree canopy study several years ago, had a consultant come in and work on that, and based on looking at things like air quality, water quality, numerous benefits that it provides to the city, carbon sequestration. It's a multi-million-dollar investment that works for us. And in a sense, trees are working for us, for our community. So that's another important point to note. So we need standard and specs. We need a more solid ordinance, because in an urban environment, we need to maintain our trees. Trees need to be maintained. They need to be inspected routinely. You'll see a picture in the upper left-hand corner. Do you recognize what that picture is? That's Thompson Park, right? And Bobby King's here tonight. He was a witness to something that happened there at the 4th of July celebration. Maybe some of you are aware of that too. That, in fact, I think it's that tree on the left-hand side of that picture had a major limb failure on the 4th of July morning while people were gathering in the park about 9 o'clock. Fortunately, it fell into another tree below, and it was locked in there tightly, and they coned off or roped off the area. But unfortunately, nobody was injured. But these are the kind of things we work with, and we had four big failures this past couple of weeks. And whenever we get hot, dry weather, that's a concern. We start seeing large branch failures. So the best antidote is proper maintenance, routine maintenance, and reduce the trim cycle. So we do this because of, obviously, public safety reasons, and that probably could include liability. So in an urban environment, we have to maintain our trees. So going through a couple slides on focusing mainly more on the trees and plants chapter first. Next. There we go. In 1324, we dealt with dead trees in the old code. In the new code, we're still dealing with dead trees, dead portions of trees. A dead tree will fail eventually, and it oftentimes fails and falls on houses and falls on cars and fences, and it can cause damage. So it's really important to have the control measures in place to deal with, standing dead trees. At times, we have to be able to do inspections and go on our properties, because when we enter on private property, we are doing maybe a safety hazard tree inspection. We are dealing with looking closer at the tree because there's cracks, maybe there's decay issues, maybe there's insects and disease issues, maybe we have to take a sample of the tree in order to send it to the lab. So there's a host of reasons that at times we do have to enter onto private property to deal with these type of issues. And another good example of that actually happened this past year. We've run into it a number of times, but on Mountain View, last year there was a cracked tree. It was over by the hospital. It was in a private property. It was overhanging Mountain View. It was imminent that it was going to fail. And we couldn't contact the property owner. We have a section in that ordinance now. It's called emergencies. And that tree had to be addressed in a timely fashion. And the only way to do that was for us to get access onto that private property and get that done at that moment. So, okay, some more slides. Clearance requirements. Can you see that stop sign? No, pretty difficult. These are some of the things that we're dealing with. And this is where, again, the code will help clarify things. It gives ownership for the property owners to do it. We're also working closely with Public Works Engineering, and they're helping us out with a lot of these clearance issues. We've done some training with their staff, but we need to have the power to prune. Oftentimes these are private trees, and we need to have the authority to go in and just get those cleared. So here's 3 more examples. They're all stop signs, but we have traffic regulatory signs such as speed limit signs, parking signs, street signs, traffic light obstructions. There's all sorts of things that come into play. And these are mainly on HOA properties. Even though some of these trees are planted in the right-of-way, they are actually maintained by the HOA. And we need to work with, like, if you look at these trees, they really should have been in the front yard. Why so close to the walk? Why right inside the fence there? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So right tree, right place. Other issues that we're dealing with is site obstructions, site distance triangles, they call it. So when you come up to a street corner and at a stop sign, you're trying to look, down street, you can't see the cars coming because of vegetation encroaching into that area. Getting numerous calls on this also. And you can see in this situation, the vegetation is also starting to grow on the sidewalk. And we've actually seen places where people have to walk out into the street to go around the vegetation. At times the walk's not cleared. So the new ordinance addresses these issues much clearer. Street obstructions too, low branches over streets, low branches in alleys. Those are also issues. We get a lot of calls from RTD. Speaking of RTD, we get a lot of calls from the school district regarding their buses, homeowners. So it's another area that we need to focus on. Here's another big one. You guys have dealt with this in the past, alley clearance. We have something new in the code there where we're trying to provide or give ownership to the adjacent property owner. So you might note in there that we're asking the owner to be responsible up to the center of the alley. We would prefer that because 90% of the time the vegetation is actually from the private property owner, and oftentimes they've actually planted trees in the alley. So if we could have them take care of those trees, it just seems to make more logical sense. And property lines are so difficult to find in the alleyway also. Insect disease issues. This is, unfortunately, this has been a stronger issue in the last few years. Tree on the left is spruce hips beetle. It typically kills the tree from the top down. We lost like about 100 trees a couple of years ago to that. It was like an epidemic portions going on in town here. And those are spruce trees on the right-hand side too that died to spruce hips. Mountain pine beetle, spruce hips tree on the left, but the other 2 trees are showing symptoms of mountain pine beetle hits. It's come down from the mountains. It's prevalent here in Longmont. It's killing a lot of Scotch pines in town right now. The best antidote there is to do sanitation efforts, try to remove the portion of the tree, remove the whole tree, bury the wood, take it to landfill if we need to. Sometimes you can chip it up mechanically and we'll kill the insect. But there's certain guidelines we have to follow. And again, in our standards and specs, we have specific guidelines that deal with different individual insect and disease issues. We've expanded into the tree protection, tree preservation area because we're finding that for a lot of our, not a lot, but numerous times we get tree work being done in the right-of-way between the curb and sidewalk typically, sewer line, water line. We work closely with water department and it's going really well with them. But when private contractors are coming in, they can be digging right next to the tree and really destroying the tree. And we've had trees fall over from root damage. So we are having that addressed in the code now. So there'll be a permit process, and we have regulations in here that, who's liable for that? Now it's more clearly spelled out. So the next chapter is 6.88. There's really 4 main proposed updates to this. And there is a license fee increase. Like I said, it's been in existence since 81. It's been $25 since 81. We're proposing that go up to $60. It's basically covering a staff time, administrative time to deal with that. We're asking that the contractors now have identification on vehicles. That helps us and code to know who's the unlicensed contractor out there. We have a problem with unlicensed contractors doing work in town, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We talked about the standards and specifications, but we want the contractors to follow those standards and specs. And then there's also a matter of we're requesting now that all licensed arborists be ISA certified. That's new, and there's a host of reasons we feel like that needs to be accomplished, and probably the biggest thing is just create more professionalism in a very skillful, hazardous working industry. That's one, and we found out that like plumbers and electricians, for instance, they have to pass a state license test in order to do any construction work, contractor work in a commercial residential area. So it seems like it's in line with some of the kind of the labor trade type positions. Tree protection and consumer protection. This is big. Does that tree look proper to you? I would say the dignity of that tree is lost. Called a hat rack tree, a top tree. Unfortunately, we see this fairly common in town. I've literally had consumers, citizens call and either getting very upset or even in tears at times. It's like, I can't believe the contractor did this, and I can't believe I paid the contractor to do this. So this hopefully, when we ask for certification, we think this will help alleviate some of this. Sad to say, but all these trees were done by a licensed contractor. Not a certified arborist, but a licensed contractor. They have proved they've passed the written test, they've passed the practical test. We administer that internally. In order to get licensed, you have to do a written test. Pass that successfully, you have to do a practical test. We would rather get out of the testing business and have the ISA do the test. The certification requires a test. And we still would like to do a practical test, but we feel that a certified arborist would not do this. So presently we have 36 licensed tree contractors in town, 36. We've been trying to get a hold of every contractor they've gotten the same packet to look at it. We wanted their input, we wanted their comments, we wanted to know if they agree with it or disagree with it. We had a meeting Monday, yesterday, actually a lunch meeting. We invited a bunch of them over, and we had 9 show up to the meeting to kind of talk as a roundtable discussion and talk about this some more. So basically, out of talking to a lot of contractors over the last few weeks, actually the last few years, because we know the hearts of some of these people. 33 really agree with what we're doing, and 3 would rather us not do the certification, rather stay status quo. In a little comedy there with a happy smiley face, but frown. But presently there are 28 licensed or certified arborists in town. Out of the 33, there's 28 certified presently. Okay. There's 5 more that said that yes, it's time to do this. We'll get certified, or they'll comply. 3 of them want to do it anyways, but the 5 will actually go ahead and get their certification. So it's actually really up to be about 33 contractors that will be there. The 3 that disagree are the ones that aren't certified, obviously. Interesting, out of these meetings that we've had with different arborists and then also with phone conversations, the comments that came up was more along the lines of unlicensed contractors. Please deal with the unlicensed contractor more. It was in the code before you had to have a license to do work in town, but there's no teeth to it. It's just more like slap your hand. Hey, you can't do this. So now we have more authority to deal with this. So that was one big comment by the contractors. The other big comment was, a number of contractors quoted on this was regulate tree planting also. Include that in your code and your standards and specs. Well, we have it in the standard specs as far as a recommendation. But our comment back to them has been, we just don't have the staff or the manpower to really regulate that also. If we don't, then why regulate it? So maybe we can do a better job of education, try to help that process along. But there is a lot of poor planting that's going on, unfortunately, and sometimes some poor quality trees. So, last slide. That's it. So if you have any questions, Kim and I are glad to answer them for you.
I have one quick question. The 5 to 10 year window that you need to be trimming your trees and you're shooting for 7, what's keeping you from getting that? Is it lack of manpower, lack of money, lack of both?
Well, we got over 20,000 trees that we need to maintain, and there's 3 of us, so that's one issue. Okay. We do use private contractors to assist with a lot, but the funding's not quite where it needs to be. So okay. It's manpower and funding.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council? Well, thank you. Oh, Councilmember Santos.
Thank you. Ken, we're going to see this, coming back on the 23rd, it looks like?
I'm not really sure. Hope so.
Kind of roughly. I'm getting a big nod from Dale.
Okay.
So, Kim, did you want to?
I was going to say probably about 3 weeks, just
3 weeks.
timing of packets.
So, one quick question. You said that poor planting. I know there's only 3 of you, and I met Ernie the other day. I was in Thompson Park during the 4th. So if a resident were to call and say, hey, I'm kind of curious about where to plant this certain type of tree, could they call one of you 3 and say, where should I plant this? Would you guys be willing to come out and help them?
Where should I plant the tree, on public property or on private property?
On private property.
On private property. We don't have the time to really do that, honestly. We disseminate a lot of information.
But you could send them somewhere to say, this is probably a good place to. This type of tree you don't want to plant near your house because the roots are going to go into your foundation.
Yeah, right tree, right place. Absolutely. We can send them a list of trees recommended. We could send them a planting diagram of how to plant the tree. We could consult over the phone, but we just physically don't have the time to run out for that type of issue.
They can call and say you can give them at least some information or send them to a website.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we get numerous calls regarding issues like that. Honestly.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. I guess I have a concern about, and I don't know, I'm assuming the legal was involved. So if I go out and I vandalize the trees, then the ordinance says that I get busted and I get a ticket, and then the judge says they have to pay $999 or up to treble damages, or that's what happens as vandalism?
Yeah, the way we wrote in there was for if there was malicious work done, that it could be additional costs involved, yes.
Right, okay, so I think that's fairly clear, but my concern would be that if you're on private property, what happens? The city just writes you a note saying fix it or else, and then there's no ticket, or there's a ticket, and then it goes to the director of public works. I mean, I'm just thinking of, I mean, what's the punishment to be dealt? Because it seems like, I guess I'm just concerned if the city has a legal judicial process that ends with a city staff member. We're writing an ordinance that basically says you've got to do what the city says, but instead of a judge, our municipal judge, it's the director of public works and natural resources, and then that appeal stops there. I guess I'm just a little uncomfortable with that. And I see that there seems to be two tracks, but you kind of have to read through it. One is if you do something to destroy, and the other is if you just don't do what we say. And I guess I just want to be clear before we pass ordinance that basically says we are giving city staff, whether it be the police department or the director of public works, the authority to go out and fine our citizens and place liens on their homes. I just want to understand, what is the process? What happens?
Gene, do you want to help with this one, or do you want I can respond a little bit?
What specific provisions are you referring to?
Well, I'm like, for example, page 15, or 117, 13.24.170, appeals. So everything before that, so section 140 and hold on one second. 140 and 160 talk about, you having a duty to replace trees. Should the line 10 on page 116, should the owner of any property refuse or fail to comply with the terms of a notice? And then page 15, line 8, the property owner may file a written appeal for hearing to the Director of Public Works and Natural Resources. And then if you jump down to line 18, it says, or 17 and 18, after such hearing, the director shall make such order in the matter as is just and lawful, and shall furnish a copy of such order to the property owner. So my question is, as an attorney, I'm going, okay, what do I need to prove? What are the elements? And okay, just and lawful, well, what is that? The property owner refused or failed to comply with the terms of a notice. I just want to know, what are the rules? What's the law that we're putting in place here for people and their trees? I'm just confused. So what is the law and what is the punishment and what is the remedy in general?
Well, in general, the law would be the standards set forth in the ordinance. And I think this is relating primarily to abatements.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was I thought it was to replace a tree. Like for some reason I've got to replace a tree. Whether it was because, a person who was responsible, is it because I damaged the tree, killed the tree, because I have a contract with the city to replace the tree?
The intent of duty to replace the tree really lies with commercial developments, HOAs. We believe that a tree canopy is important for the community, and there are, maybe because of poor planting practices, maybe because the tree wasn't watered, whatever reason, there's numerous locations where trees are dying or not being replaced, and we feel that there's a duty to replace those trees. It really deals with commercial developments, HOAs, those type of things, replace the tree. If it's the right tree, right place, again, replace the tree. The next section there does not really relate to the duty to replace trees. That was not the intent anyways.
Then I guess Okay, and then so if we don't agree, what happens? If we don't agree with, I don't know if we have a problem. I guess what I'm trying to, really what it is at what point are the cops involved, and at what point do you just get a letter from the city?
Again, the intent, I think, there was probably more for dead tree violations, encroachment issues, safety issues. That is the intent for the abatement.
So if I think a tree's unsafe and I go out and cut down a branch on my own, and it's on public property and I don't want it hanging over my house, city's not responding, who responds? The cops?
Hopefully forestry will respond to something like that. And if it's a city tree, hopefully we will get that on our work request list and just address that as soon as we can. A homeowner should not be really whittling away on public trees.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that they shouldn't be. So like on page 13, on page 115.13, 13.24.130, tree preservation damages and cost recovery. It shall be line 7. It shall be unlawful to injure, damage, destroy, or remove any tree situated upon city property. So let's suppose I'm Paul Tiger, okay? Love Paul. So your tree, How about John Doe? John Doe. I love Tiger. So let's suppose that it's on city property and it's overhanging my house. I see those pictures. I don't want your tree branch, your 12-year cycle. I heard you. 12-year cycle. So I go out and I'm fearful and I hear it cracking and I call and call. Nobody responds. You're just busy. So I decide to hire someone and I cut it down. It's unlawful. I have violated the law and there's a penalty here. I just want to know, I just think it's unclear. Am I violating the municipal ordinance? Do you write me a ticket? Do I get a letter from the director of public works? And if I don't like him or her, I guess my concern is as I read it all in general, the general feedback is it is unclear to me what is the penalty. If you're telling me I can't do this, what is going to happen if I do violate the law? I would like to know, am I going before a judge? Or am I having an administrative hearing with the director of public works? I would like to see that more clear, just in general. Because, like for you said the intent is we won't be able to call you in and ask what the intent is at trial. We're going to have to just look at the plain language of the statute and say, we got to go with it.
Code enforcement is heavily involved with this process, and they would give a notice of violation. Okay. They could write a summons, a ticket. But the example that you gave about a public tree overhanging and stuff, hopefully there's communication involved there, and that even though we're on a 12-year cycle, we tend to focus on the bigger trees and take care of those and focus highly on request work. If there's an issue on there. So, that's, but you're focusing, I understand, I just want to make clarity of that. You're focusing also on the language of the code, and we need to probably maybe look at that closer between us and legal.
That's my only suggestion. I think, in theory, everything in here, good. I just want to make sure that it's spelled out clearly, what have I got to do if I get busted? That's it. And I will, Eugene. I will.
Councilmember Bradley, hear your concerns, and it looks like you're looking for either appeal process or some sort of judicial oversight of some of these determinations.
Yeah.
A remedy of appeal, if you disagree. Dale is not God.
I didn't say that. Dale is God, but just maybe not over trees. He's the water guy. He's Poseidon.
We're working on that, though.
Councilmember Levison. Thank you, Mayor. I understand where Councilmember Bagley is going, almost to the Supreme Court, I think, but it seems that maybe there's a variance from the circumstance he's thinking in to maybe what the intent was. Somebody with a chainsaw who wants a Christmas tree, and they're going to go onto the golf course and they're going to cut down a couple of trees and haul them home. But I think that maybe what's not reflected is and I don't know how you reflect it in the code, is kind of what your response was, the real life, what happens in real life. And my experience with your department is that if there's a branch that looks like it's hanging and a part of the end of the branch would touch someone's property, and you call the city and say, that branch is going to fall and damage a piece of grass in my front yard, the city is out there within 24 hours, because the other part of it is the liability for the city is pretty high if a tree that's not maintained on city property damages private property, is my understanding, that you guys would accept full liability. So, you know, in some respects, you're trying to, also I think what Councilmember Bagley may not, you know, also look is that somebody you might hire that would be a licensed contractor would probably call the city before they cut the tree too, recognizing that it would be on city property. And I think there's a large variation to where trees are planted and what goes on with trees, but I don't know whether or not I mean, maybe the appeal issue needs to be more clear. However, it is like a code violation we're dealing with here. And so maybe we need to look at it as specifically what happens in a code violation situation. I also got in the queue because I wanted to reiterate how very important it is to have a licensed contractor. A neighbor of ours had an unlicensed contractor several years ago trim a tree, and these guys really had no idea what they were doing, to the point that the one neighbor was not home when the work was being done. Part of a branch was coming down, and they had not secured it, and it took out part of the next door neighbor's house and part of their roof. And then the guys just went, oh, well, you know, no, thank goodness nobody was inside that room at that time, but I think it's a critical piece that there's confidence in consumers in the city. And we typically, I've seen maybe 3 to 4 emails coming to the city council members every year regarding people commenting on the quality of the tree trimming that they've hired out in the city. And having that professional standard, I think, would boost confidence that if somebody is actually licensed and they say they're licensed, the quality of your work is going to be pretty standard and the canopy is going to be maintained. The other part of the issue here around value is that, and I just learned some of this at the Colorado Municipal League, had a great session on urban forestry, and there's actually a true assessed and appraised value for some of these large trees and old growth trees. And I can't tell you all the detail about the forester's presentation about how they value the trees, but there is an inherent value in the tree for a lot of reasons. So I think that getting an appropriate, if a tree is damaged, somebody carves their initials in a tree that can damage it, then, you know, it's like vandalism, whether it's a park bench or a tree. And I know we had an issue recently in some of our parks with people doing graffiti on trees. And that's really a big issue. If to try to get it removed without damaging the tree is a challenge. So I think that the more we can do to protect the public access is something that I'm glad you're trying to address in the code as well. But I would think that, you know, the compliance part, some of that appeal, I think really it refers back to if someone is not going to comply, doing the abatement just like they do the abatement for weed control and other things too. So if we can standardize it with the way code enforcement is normally handled, I think that might be more what Councilmember Bagley would be looking for, something that's already a standard procedure.
All right. Well, thank you, Ken. That was a good presentation.
Thank you all.
Mayor Coombs, your last item is the Pavlakis Open Space Master Plan and Park naming item, and Paula Fitzgerald will make this presentation.
Slides are less.
I actually saw this presentation at our Rotary meeting a couple weeks ago. Right. So I can take a break.
I tried to freshen it up. Mayor and Council, Paula Fitzgerald, Parks and Open Space Project Manager, and I'm very happy to be here tonight, along with Kevin Lyles, who's in the audience, who's our consultant with Confluent Design. We are here to present the Pavlakis Open Space, or what we're calling Dickens Farm Park, informal park name, until tonight. And so what I would like to do to start is just give you an overview of the project. So starting with its location. So Pavlakis Open Space is in the lower downtown area. It's bounded by Main Street on the west. And you can kind of, well, I don't know if I can, I guess the cursor doesn't work up here. So Main Street's on the west, Martin Street is on the east, the St. Vrain Creek is to the south, and Harvest Junction North, the commercial development with Best Buy and Dick's Sporting Goods, is just south of the creek there. Other landmarks are the Fire Training Center is in the northeast of the park site, and the wastewater treatment plant is to the east of the property, just across Martin Street and just off this slide to the right. The D-Barn, the big red event center, is just to the northwest corner of the park on South Main Street. So hopefully you're oriented. So this is a 52-acre park site with 3 shallow warm water ponds on it. The whole area is part of the Southeast Urban Renewal District, and the site was purchased back in 2002 using open space funds with the purpose of a district park being developed there at some point. The site was first discussed during the 2001 St. Vrain Greenway Master Plan update process, and it was identified at that time as a trailhead and district park site. And it was also identified as a great location for a future whitewater park. So in 2004, the city pursued and obtained a conditional decree for a recreation in-channel diversion, also known as an RICD. We are now referring to this as a river park, not to confuse anybody, but to try to do some expectation management on exactly the kinds of flows that we normally see in our river. And we do have occasional whitewater, but generally it's more of a floating type of situation. So I want to start giving you a little project background and issue analysis of what we've been looking at for the last couple of years. So there's several engineering issues that we've explored. The St. Vrain Greenway, oops. What happened here? Okay. The St. Vrain Greenway floodplain study is one of those engineering issues, and in 2008, the city hired Anderson Consulting Engineers to study and identify and define the flood hazards between Weld County Road 1 and Airport Road. Further work was done in 2012. Basically, they did the preliminary design for a section of that reach between the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad near Price Road and Martin Street, which is right across our project area. They gave us in that study guidance on the improvements needed on this project site to help mitigate the flooding in the lower downtown area. And the outcome of that study is that we need to do a fairly extensive amount of excavation to remove this site and surrounding properties from the floodplain. Another issue that you're aware of is the Boston Avenue Collector Street, and this is a planned collector street that will tie between Martin Street and Main Street, and it will run through the northern portion of the park site. So council back in your January of this year meeting approved a conveyance of approximately 6 acres of land for the purpose of this future collector street. Our project will build the south half of that collector along the project edge from Martin Street to our trailhead. We'll also build the full box culvert that crosses the Spring Gulch in this area. The remainder of the road has funding approved beginning in the year 2015 to develop the rest of that road.
Another background project is the riparian protection plan. So this was a study that staff hired Biohabitats, who also happens to be a sub-consultant on our project team, back in 2010, and we looked at 10 miles of the river corridor from Airport Road to Highway 119, which of course included the project site. And this map is just one of their maps that they came up with. The center of that map is Main Street, and so you can see all the highlighted areas that really run right through our property there. Many specific recommendations were made, including bankside stabilization, riparian area improvements, and even guidance on habitat-friendly improvements that can be made in the river park area. So these suggestions will be incorporated into the design. Another issue that has been identified is the protection of the Bonus Ditch Lowhead Dam located in the St. Vrain at the project site area. So the Bonus Ditch is one of the oldest ditches in Longmont, and the project's required to protect the water rights and delivery. And that is already protected as part of the conditional stipulation as part of the conditional decree. You've been sent letters of concern from the Bonus Ditch Company representatives, and it was provided in your packets just yesterday. And Ken Houston is, from our Water Resources Division, is also here tonight if you have specific questions on that issue. But another water right of concern that affects the project is owned by adjacent property owners Kim Knake and Sue Connolly of the Dickens property. And that's an even older property or water right for the Dickens private ditch. And that serves their D-barn and historic property right next door. So we will also be required to maintain not only their water rights, but also access to their pump station and work with them closely on the project. We also completed environmental studies assessing habitat and wildlife species. One area was critical species were identified during the project relates to the St. Vrain fishery. So these aquatic species are identified by the Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff. There's 3 native fish that are found in this reach of the St. Vrain that are listed as either state threatened or state species of concern. They've been monitoring these fish for many years, and their concerns and project suggestions are noted in your packet from Wildlife Manager Larry Rogstad. So we will also continue to work very closely with Colorado Parks and Wildlife during the design to mitigate impacts to these species. As with all of our park and trail development projects, we've undergone a significant public process. We began that public process back in April of 2012, and I did include a summary of the major outreach efforts made as part of our public process in your packet. So we've held 4 project-specific public meetings, along with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, which was held this past June. We've conducted web surveys. We've posted display boards throughout city building venues and had comment cards at those locations that we've collected. And we've also updated the web page with information as we've worked our way through the project. So if council's interested, I could certainly step you through the progression of design from visioning to concepts to draft master plan to final draft master plan, but in the interest of time, I thought I would just focus on the plan that's before you tonight for approval. However, just to note that your packet does include all those interim steps that we typically go through to develop our projects. So I'd like to step you through the draft master plan, and we'll later ask for your direction on this plan. So first, to orient you on the plan, Main Street again is to the left on this slide. Martin Street is to the right. You see the 3 ponds. You see a dashed line at the top of the slide, which is the future Boston Avenue. And the south colored edge of the drawing is the St. Vrain Creek. We'll start by zooming in to the eastern portion of the project site up near Martin Street. So access will come from Martin Street, and again, we'll be developing the south half of that collector road from Martin Street to the trailhead. And we've located the parking lot central to the park area. And we're also showing some overflow parking for some, somewhat larger events that may take place there. We're also showing a little bit further to the south along Martin Street access coming in. This is in the informal access, more of a clearance area for emergency vehicles to get into the project site and access the river in case there was ever any problems related to the river park in particular. This drawing also shows an overflow channel coming from the Fire Training Center, which is to the top right of the slide, and where water is cleaned through a forebay on their site and then continues under Boston Avenue and through a vegetated swale at the park site. So that's a best management practice stormwater cleansing sort of technique that we can use to clean any runoff from their site that comes into the ponds in the park site. This also shows an overflow or a low flow weir that could be provided to direct water into the eastern pond from Spring Gulch. This slide shows the western portion of the park site, and first looking at trails. So the red trail is the existing St. Vrain Greenway Trail. And this trail basically stays as it is, except for those portions that will have to be lowered due to floodplain excavation. And particularly that will be at the west end of the project site and then between the two south ponds. The existing trail to the north pond, shown in orange dashed line, will remain. But we're proposing a new bike skills trail, as you heard earlier from the public invited to be heard. Ryan Craigwood spoke to this trail. When we're showing that at the west end of the park site, and just want to clarify that this is a beginner novice trail. So it's a rolling trail with a variety of materials, and it's really, the purpose is not for moderate or advanced use of some bike park, but really for novices to get comfortable on a bike and learn how to ride a bike on that kind of rolling terrain of mixed materials. So we are also showing it as a loop to minimize conflict onto the adjacent Greenway Trail. We're also proposing, and you'll see a orange dashed line kind of between the St. Vrain Creek and the West Pond, and this is a nature discovery trail. So natural playgrounds is kind of a new focus of playground development in response to nature deficit disorder, which is something that people are talking about a lot, that our kids are getting disconnected from nature and spending more and more time on electronics and inside. So a natural play area is basically, in this one, we have 4 nodes of activity along that trail, and they are things that are made of and from nature. So a fallen log for kids to climb on, stepping stones, water play, interaction. There's a little stream that comes off of the new channel where kids can get in and build little dams across that channel or manipulate the water. Natural materials would be made available so that they can construct a little teepee or a wickiup or something like that. So it's really very much a natural play area and really would not look like a playground per se. Now, we do have one area identified on the map as A, which would be a handicap accessible play area, and this would have constructed materials that are in keeping with nature, so you can buy concrete logs that kids can climb through, or climbing boulders, things like that. So it would all be on nature theme, but it would be handicap accessible, as is now required by the new ADA. Trails are also a big part of the river park portion of the design. It's been found that 70% of people coming to visit a river park are actually spectators. It's a huge spectator sport. So we've tried to provide adequate opportunities for viewing along that river park. And then this plan also shows berms, and basically that is an attempt to balance the earthwork and all the excavation that we will have resulting from the floodplain work. There's also filling in both the north and the west pond, also to utilize some of that excess material. But that filling of the west and north ponds in particular will also have the intent to improve the habitat in those areas and create more gently sloped sides and more riparian edge along them. And the next slide here is really the kind of the center of the park. And I'll start first with the river park. And as you can see, this long winding channel basically is a bypass configuration to provide a navigable river access for the 6 to 8 feet drop of the Bonus Ditch Dam. So it basically goes around that dam. It would be constructed and be far less wide than the native river channel. So basically the water that we have can be utilized more effectively for floating. There would be several drops throughout that bypass channel, but they would be fairly low drops and slower moving water. So this becomes much more of a family-friendly type of river park. You also see that it's almost a looped aspect, and there is ways to take out at the bottom of that bypass channel and climb back up to the top. So you really could kind of create a looped and spend a day there just enjoying the park with your family. So this river park really is the focus of the park design and for this this area. Adjacent to the river park, just to the north, to the top of the slide from the big bend on the river there, is a program space with bankside seating and a multi-use shelter. So this would provide some opportunity for both private and scheduled educational programs in small venues. We are not intending to try to build another Rogers Grove with large events. This is really looked at as being a very low-key district park area, but certainly a very suitable area for several educational type events as well. Adjacent to that area is a restroom, and we're looking at including a little changing area for any boaters in that restroom. The East Pond is designated as a native fish refuge and breeding pond for Colorado Parks and Wildlife suggestion. So we would not be looking at including any sport fishing, but you know, just handcraft boats would be allowable on that pond. Reforestation, habitat improvements, and bank stabilization as recommended in the Riparian Protection Plan are also included in the project. And you see throughout the plan several little identifiers with numbers on them, and those are potential interpretive sign locations. So we are looking at several interpretive signs would be appropriate in the site, one potentially on the Dickens homestead if the suggested name is approved by council. Pond ecology or some of the species in the area are other subjects that we could look at. Also included in your communication is information on the master plan level cost estimate that we've just received. So the current budget is just short of $3 million, and as you can see, our projections at this level of design shows about a $1.7 million funding shortfall. So I wanted to explain some of the reasons for that shortfall. There's been three major things that have been added to the project since we first did our budgeting on the CIP project. One is the floodplain. That study, it's obvious that it makes sense to do any excavation before you finish the surface of the ground. So earthwork and actually some sewer line lowering or relocation will be part of this project that was not anticipated at the time of the original budgeting. And that's approximately $300,000 additional cost to the project. Boston Avenue is no longer considered to be just a driveway access up to the trailhead, but we're looking at, since we're so close in timing to the full development of that roadway, is going ahead and building that half of the Collector Street and the full box culvert of Spring Gulch. And that's about $500,000 in additional charge for, cost from what we originally budgeted. And finally, the bypass channel itself is certainly a much more extensive earthwork project and certainly has lots of wonderful opportunities and certainly has the advantage of protecting the existing channel and the species within that, but that's approximately $1 million of additional work. The good news is first is that both Street Fund and Conservation Trust Fund, but primarily Conservation Trust Funds would be affected by this funding. But again, the good news is that there is a fund balance available in Conservation Trust Fund, which is seen higher than normal or higher than budgeted revenues. And we have included this in the 2014 to 17 CIP to kind of fill the Conservation Trust Fund portion of that funding gap. So with this, I would basically, as is mentioned in your packet, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board reviewed the master plan at their June meeting and recommended approval to City Council. So we're requesting your review and your discussion of that tonight. And the second item on this item is requesting a formal park name. So, as council is aware, there is a park naming ordinance that the city abides by in naming our new parks. In September of 2012, staff concluded a 5-month public process and solicitation for park names. Parks Board looked at those suggestions at their September 2012 meeting and made the recommendation of Dickens Farm Park. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be very happy to answer any questions and or turn it over to others.
I just have one quick question. I'm noticing just a lot of mosquitoes this year. Just to get my newspaper in the morning, I got to spray DEET before I can walk out to my driveway. And, dropping off limbs at the tree limb diversion, the other day it was 95 degrees, wind kind of blowing, and I'm still getting bit in the middle of the day in broad sunshine. When I look at this, I see a mosquito breeding ground. Are we going to, I hate to spend $4 million on a park and then not mitigate mosquito control. Are we planning on, if we do have mosquito problems, actually, spraying for mosquitoes at the park? Or I know people hate to hear that, but sometimes it's less of two evils.
I'm going to let Kim answer that.
Mayor, Council, our current program for mosquito control is a vector-based program, which it means we're targeting diseases like West Nile. We don't spray for nuisance mosquitoes currently in the city.
I just don't know if those mosquitoes that are biting me are nuisance. I'll soon find out.
Yeah. Thank you. I could just add, Mayor, that we are actually reducing the amount of open water in this plan, and then the bypass channel with moving water has certainly less tendency to breed larvae than stagnant water. So, it's probably not a great deal worse, or if any, than the existing situation down there.
Well, thank you, Paul. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I've had the opportunity to look at this several times, and you guys have done a great job at getting public input on it. I think it's going to be an awesome park, so I would move that we accept the master plan.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. So Bagley Land is out of the question. Haven't gotten there yet? No. Oh, nice. There's still a chance. What are handcraft boats?
Okay, Mayor and Council, basically no motorized boats. Okay. So, floaters, tubes, kayaks, canoes, things like that.
Okay, and then where is the water coming from for the lazy river? Like, where is it? What's upstream, so to speak?
Well, the existing St. Vrain Channel will feed into it's just a bypass channel. So it basically is a new channel of the St. Vrain Creek.
I guess what I want to know is where's it coming from? Is it
the snow?
The Union. I'm just checking. The Union Reservoir conversation all over again. Is it just coming from the mountains? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Is it just snow? Just checking. It's not coming out of my neighborhood because I'm not using it. The next question I have is the 1.3 million that is not covered, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I can't decide. In the packet, it seemed like we'd have to come up with it by cutting costs. But what I heard from you is that in the CIP budget between 2014 and 2017, there will be funds to cover the 1.3 million?
Mayor and Council, so we do have money in the Conservation Trust Fund portion to cover that portion of the cost. The street fund portion is a little tighter, and so we will continue on the entire project to look for ways to reduce costs, and we're hoping that this master plan level cost estimate is a little bit on the conservative side, and that we actually can come in lower than that. So we will do what we can to make that happen, regardless of which fund it will come from.
So if we vote for it and we approve the master plan, we just do it in phases like we did with Union Reservoir?
No, this is a one-phase project currently proposed. Now, certainly there's the opportunity if prices could continue or some new thing hits us that we could not manage it within the funding that we have, we could look at phasing. That certainly is always an option. But generally, phasing is a more expensive route because you've got mobilization with each of those phases. So
I guess what I'm really asking is, how do we pay? I mean, do we have the money?
So I think what Paul is saying in this is that there is additional revenues in other funding sources, but we're still going to look for cost reductions in order to maximize the value of the dollar in this case. But in terms of you are not approving, you're approving the master plan, but then when we bring the bid documents back, there are other processes that we will bring you through for approval that will include the funding, and once we get a better sense of what the cost is, you will see those numbers. So what you're approving today is a master plan, and then we have to go through the bid process.
Okay. And then last question, the $30,000 a year maintenance just seems really cheap for all this cool stuff. We're sure that number's right? I'm mowing? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm mowing. I've been designated.
Mayor and Council, that did come from our operations staff, and he did put a pretty sharp pencil to it. Keep in mind that the majority of the site is native grasses. So our new management policy is to mow those only a couple times a year. A little weed management. We really have minimized, in keeping with district park sort of philosophy, we are trying to make this a green space that will be irrigated, but a natural area within the heart of the city.
And that 30,000, we're going to have to, that goes into the overall discussion on parks maintenance, how are we going to maintain it, et cetera. What's another 30 grand? Got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Witt.
So that nature deprivation disease, I think you've got it. but I was going to say, I really am excited about this park, and especially that little training area for little cyclists, because I was over at Longmont Bike Park, and it was swarming with kids 3 feet and shorter on little bikes, and it was so cute, and it very much fits with our community, and so looking forward to seeing this come to fruition.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight a couple of things. When I was reading through the letter from the Colorado, get it right, Wildlife Management Department, they actually specifically asked not only to pay attention to those 3 fish species, but to also think about accommodating student internship projects to keep track of the fish and what activities go on. Have we accommodated their request to make those drops a bit lower? Have we taken that in consideration in the design work?
Mayor and Council, great question. In my response to Division of Wildlife is that all those things are doable when we get into the detailed design. So our project team has looked at their request closely. The Parks and Wildlife has provided us with a technical document on the size of the drop, the depth of the pools below those drops, the velocity these fish can swim up those drops to make it accommodate fish passage. So those are all things that when we get past master plan and get into the detailed design, we'll be looking at very, very closely. So I think, yes, they are doable. And that's certainly
And I also found their comments around I don't know if it's the right term to use, invasive predator species. I mean, like people letting their piranhas go into the,
I think what they're
it's
talking
not
about
going
is
to be that.
trout,
They're,
actually.
they're talking about something else, but, Councilmember Bagley kind of rubs off on me sometimes, so I'm thinking of people like, letting their pacus and piranhas, run free, and they're eating all these poor little fish that are endangered, and,
Boas. Don't forget boas and alligators.
Yeah. I guess I must have seen that fish movie recently. Anyway, and sharks and all that. The other opportunity, I hope that with this the Department of Wildlife issue is maybe it could be incorporated into a learning experience with the STEM programs and water quality and all that kind of thing. It seems like it would be a great partnership with whatever interns or graduate students they have to perhaps partner with the school district and have some real hands-on service learning opportunities for, the after-school science programs or MESA or the STEM programs. I would hope that we can incorporate some of that that emphasis here too in the natural learning that can happen. One thing I did not see was any indication of any archaeological or historical survey work that might have been done, because this was a former, my understanding it is actually the location of the farm site. And I'm wondering whether or not, I know other states have requirements before you start digging on things, what's going to happen if this is a natural, stream bed. Could we find artifacts from the Dickens family 150 years ago? Could we find Native American artifacts because of the location of, the stream may not have changed in a couple of 100 years, or maybe it has. What capacity do we have to, if we stumble on some archaeological objects, to accommodate that? And then who would own them? Would the city own them and the museum have custody of it?
Mayor and council, just briefly, basically we did our historical and archaeological survey, and we just did the most broad survey of all during the master plan process back in 2001, and this was identified as the homestead site and has some historical significance. I can certainly check with Colorado Historical Society and see if they would recommend. There often has been previous work been done on some of these sites, so we can figure out if anything has been done. And certainly there's a wealth of information in our adjacent owners, the Connect and Connollys, who have the actual homestead from the Dickens property, and who provided the information in your packet on the park naming. So there's certainly a lot of information that they've shared with the museum and other staff. So any findings on city property, I believe, would become the property of the city and would certainly be likely turned over to the museum for safekeeping.
I'm just wondering, usually there was a pretty big garbage pile somewhere, and recently there was an article about excavation in Lafayette of somebody, and they found out they had stumbled basically on the former outhouse waste pit, and what they found in it was very interesting. So I'm wondering if there could be as interesting.
The museum doesn't want that.
No, the natural elements were long gone. Yes. And then the last issue that I really want to make sure that we are careful with is the issue that was brought up around the ditch rights and what we would do to potentially violate water law or just maintain good relationships with the neighbors. Certainly the NACI and Connolly partnership that own the adjacent property, but also to make sure that the ditch company, we don't get ourselves into any trouble and ruin what we have as good relationships. I think that it's going to be a huge asset to everybody, but I'd like to make sure we do it the right way and not step on people's feet and just be careful. So those are my total comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Witt.
And speaking of names, I think that I would move that we.
We already have a motion.
Oh, thank heavens! Can we vote?
Yes, let's vote on the motion. We're voting on approval of the master plan. Okay, that passes 7-0. Councilmember Witt.
Do we have to do the name separately?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would move that we adopt the name of Dickens Farm Park for our new park.
Okay, it's been seconded. All right, let's vote on the name. Oh, Councilmember Riley? We're not going to name the name Bagley Lane. Passes 7-0. All right, so now it's time for, thank you, Paula. It's time for final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anyone who would like to speak at final call, public invited? Please come down and state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. It's my first meeting. It's very exciting, a little cold, but thank you for staying late to hear my comments. My name is Amy Saunders, and I live at 1366 McClure Drive. It's Wolf Creek Development. It's out on Pace. We have over 400 residents, single family, 16 acres, and I'm on the HOA board. And consequently, I was volunteered to be on NGLA. And I wanted to come here tonight to applaud your support of NGLA because we love NGLA. And I sent out an email to you folks a few months ago, and I wasn't sure if you got it, so I wanted to come and tell you that it's a great point of reference for me to know what's going on in the city. And then with my little group of people, they're getting information from me that they might not be getting from other points from the city. I was the first time we were introduced to the Trails Master Plan, and we were introduced to the new city staff and why we have an external and an internal assistant city manager. That was great to find that out. The police beat, what other neighborhoods are doing, and what's happening monthly. The list goes on and on. So I just had a couple of suggestions real quick, if I might. This was before I heard about the bus, which is awesome because I didn't even know this bus pass discount was happening. And I have 3 kids, and I grew up in Boulder, and I took the bus everywhere and rode my bike. And I want my kids to ride the bus, but $2.25 for a family of 5 was ridiculous. And I'm not sure what the politically correct term is for the route system. Lame comes to mind, but that was the second hurdle. But now that I know that the passes are there, and that I know that RTD would love to see people using this system, that the more you ride, the more routes we're going to get. I'm totally supportive of that, and I'll walk that 2 extra miles because we live out on Pace to go to the bus station. It's quite far. So I thought that one of the best times I ever had a survey was on a bus when I was in Boulder, and I thought that was a great moment to capture the public's opinion on any issue, not just the bus, like what's going on with the Trails Master Plan, and see what the public has to say, because you can't really go anywhere when you're on the bus until you get to your stop. So I thought that was great. And then this last weekend, I was at Steamboat and visiting the visitor center, and they had a great survey on an iPad stand about their city and why we came there and what we're going to do. And I thought that was a really interesting thing that we could maybe do, like at the rec center or at the library right next to the Trails Master Plan, and get some feedback through there. The incentive for that was a free night stay at Steamboat, which I didn't win, but that's okay. And and then at Rhythm on the River, I thought that would be a great way to promote the more rides, more routes sort of system for people to get to know that we have this great bus system now. Well, we're going to have a great bus system because people are going to ride it, I promise. I'll ride it, and I'll tell my friends. It'll be great. So thank you for your support of NGLA. It's been a great resource. It got me here talking at 10 o'clock at night to all you fine folks. So thank you for supporting it. Good night.
Thank you. Just to come up helpful, you'll be walking 2 miles from us. Councilmember Santos.
Just for clarification, we haven't received the grant yet. So, but we have our fingers crossed and our toes.
All right, it's time for mayor and council comments. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I would like to announce my business of the week, the Blue Reef Seafood Market. I don't know if many of you have been there, but it's a great place to get fresh, quality seafood. It's located at 900 Kaufman Street, Suite C. Go get some seafood. It's good for you.
All right, well, I'd like to say congrats to Don Haddad for winning the top National School Superintendent Award. I think that's huge for our community, and congratulations to Don Haddad. Anybody else would like to make any comments? Well, Rhythm on the River is this Saturday, and I guess we're all going to be down there taking shifts. I'm actually going to sign up to run the 5K. Councilmember Levison.
Actually, I won't be taking a shift. The CML Executive Board retreat is this weekend, so I will be inside air conditioning working. So, but I will think of all of you and the wonderful time I had last year with Councilmember Witt, and you know, how just the bonding experience of being in the heat and melting. So, and I know we've gotten some solicitation from staff about the county fair parade. I just would also like to throw out an idea that Councilmember Bagley thought he'd like to ride. I would not walk. I would like to ride on horseback. I don't know if anybody's interested in being on horseback, or if we could get a horse-drawn cart or something like a carriage or something that would be lovely. Stagecoach. Yeah, I did that once as a kid. But it would be great to do something like that. But I'm not opposed to walking. I just don't want to ride on a really big truck. So, but I'd also like to decorate. So, Councilmember Witt, this would be a great opportunity to collaborate again.
Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Anybody that's 21 years or older that would like to volunteer their time serving beer at Rhythm of the River, contact Karen Roney. Oh, well, monitor the gate. I thought you needed people to serve the beer too.
No.
Oh, okay.
You're the enforcer.
All right. Well, thank you. I guess, City Manager, do you have any additional remarks?
We do, Mayor and Council. Kim Sugar's going to give an update on mosquitoes that you brought up earlier, and the results that we're getting from some of our testing and the city's response.
All right.
Mayor, Council, a quick update. Every week we do monitor 11 sites. We trap mosquitoes at 11 sites and look at those results to see if there are any diseases, West Nile. This last week that we tested, 5 of our 11 sites did come up positive, and these are primarily in the east, southeast, and south part of the community, so we are doing regular spraying. In addition, another site, Fairgrounds, did come up, Fairgrounds Lake actually came up positive for West Nile virus. So the county is going to conduct an emergency spraying. Right now it's looking like Thursday night because we wanted to have time to inform the citizens, and they felt it was important to do this given that Rhythm on the River is going to be this weekend. So I'm bringing this up. They are going to issue a press release talking about this emergency spraying, so I just wanted to make everybody aware that this is going to happen.
Okay. Thank you.
We also are going to try to show you the new video for the Fireball Run, but apparently we're having some technical difficulties in getting it on Apple TV 1, so I think Riga's going to bring it up on this.
We can see it. We can see it.
Oh, you can see it?
We can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, so then we're not on Apple TV 1.
We can see it right here. Yes.
No, they're seeing mine. So we're
There
not
you
on
are.
Apple TV. There it
Now
goes.
you're up. Can you go wide? Full screen.
I'm Longmont Mayor Dennis Coombs. We're happy to be the Green Flag City for the 2013 Fireball Run.
Since 2007, Fireball Run has been the most epic adventure rally in America. This is the real story of 40 teams as they embark upon a gripping and emotional 8-day, 2,500-mile life-size trivia game where America is the game board.
I'm standing here at Golden Pond, one of the many city views you will see during your visit to our beautiful city. Before I show you more of Longmont's natural beauty, I want to applaud Fireball Run for creating such an exciting event. And congratulations for the great success in your race to recover America's missing children. I want to express our gratitude for your support of the Tiny Tim Center in Longmont. We have designated this Childhood Development Center as the official charitable organization during the Longmont portion of Fireball Run. You can find more information about this great group of educators at tinytimcenter.org. Now let me show you why you belong in Longmont. Located just north of Denver, Longmont is a sophisticated city known for its high-tech industries, great schools, an educated workforce, a growing airport, art and music, a historic downtown, great restaurants, and with 3 big Colorado breweries, Longmont is becoming a hub for craft beer lovers. Longmont also is surrounded by incredible natural beauty and great views of the Rocky Mountains, hundreds of acres of open space, miles of bike trails, amazing parks, and many fantastic lakes. Longmont is a place that merges big city comforts with the best of outdoor living. The famous Colorado lifestyle starts right here in Longmont. Those of us who live and work here already know that Longmont is where we belong, and others are starting to take notice. Longmont is recognized as an All-America City by the National Cities League. Money Magazine lists Longmont as one of America's top 100 best places to live. Longmont is an Arbor Day Foundation Tree City, USA. The League of American Bicyclists has designated Longmont as a bike-friendly community. Longmont is recognized as one of America's safest cities. The art community says Longmont is a top 10 artistic city. And social media says Longmont is one of America's happiest cities. Runners and bikers, adults and children, residents and visitors, they all feel like they belong in Longmont. And once you see all that Longmont has to offer, you too will feel like you belong. We look forward to hosting the Fireball Run 2013 All-Stars and Movie Cars, the most epic adventure rally in America. Good luck to all the competitors. Be safe and have fun.
Pretty happy putting that all together. City Attorney, any comments?
I do have one comment, Mayor and Council. My office identified a minor discrepancy in the June 25th agenda. This was item 9E, the acquisition of right-of-way for the 9th Avenue missing sidewalk. In that resolution, Council approved 3 acquisition contracts. 2 acquisition contracts were fine. The Hardy contract in the Council Com, the purchase price was listed as $52.70. In the contract that was attached to the resolution, the purchase price was listed as $46.50. That was a previous version. So, Mayor, you executed the correct version with the correct price, $52.70. Just wanted to raise that to Council's attention that there was that discrepancy between the Council Com and the contract, but we've got the right price and the right contract executed. That's it.
Great, thank you. All right, this meeting is adjourned.